Racing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to the start of a brand new season here tonight at Evolution Sim Racing, where we host our first multi-class championship featuring all of the Monday night classes that we've had so far on the channel, with the GT4s and the TCRs coming together for the very first time. We returned to the circuit which saw the dramatic end of last season, where, if you all remember, William Humphrey clinched that elite championship in the last race of the season. We're back at the circuit Zolder. So we're looking forward to another event tonight, and I'm sure the drivers will be pretty familiar with this one, after a lot of them ended that season here last time out. I hope everyone joining us is having a good Monday evening so far and is ready to enjoy the show. And of course, welcome to all of our existing drivers watching back the broadcast after the fact. So my name is Joseph Glass, and as always, I'm joined in the commentary box this evening by Mr. Dara Thacker. And Dara, we've had a short break over the winter period, but what a way to make a comeback in what I'm sure will be some cracking multi-class races this evening.
Yeah, we've just had about just enough time to miss the series, haven't we? But we're back exactly where we left off at Zolder, and it was a great way to end the season last time out. So really excited to get us back going once again, and with the four classes over 2 categories, I think it's going to be really exciting to see which drivers can really pull in front. Of course, drivers had the choice between the GT4s and the TCRs, and I think it's going to really create some exciting racing between all of our drivers tonight.
Yeah, it certainly will. The first time that we've had 4 classes on the grid in an ESR race. We've got the GT4 Pros and AMs, and we've got the TCR Pros and AMs, and at the moment, a quick look at the timing sheet, we've got over 50 drivers on track tonight, some returning and some new names. So let's keep an eye out and see how all of these guys get on. Before we go to trackside though, let's have a look at the series sponsors that we have with us this season. So of course, the wonderful Kame are back with us once again, sponsoring the league in many ways, but mostly for the driver trophies, which are again on offer for the drivers finishing toward the top of their classes. And of course, the drivers finishing toward the top of the team's championships. And alongside them, we have the GP2 group and Keenan Eco Energy as always. So a big thanks to the 3 of those sponsors for helping us do what we do here at Evolution Sim Racing. A quick look at the calendar then before we head to trackside. We've got 10 rounds ahead of us, or should I say 10 weeks ahead of us, starting here at the circuit Zolder. We've had 2 pretty successful pre-season rounds, first at Donington Park and then Cadwell Park. Some tricky circuits for those guys to get their teeth into during pre-season. Now though, the championship points are on offer, and we start with Zolder, followed by Road America. Then we head off to Virginia, which is a circuit that ESR hasn't done in a very, very long time. It would strike me as being a Season 1 GT3, maybe a Season 2 GT3 at best. Since then, we haven't revisited that. Then we make a ESR debut at the Long Beach circuit, which will be very, very interesting. And then we go back to Sebring, which has been on the calendar many times before. After that, it's Coda, then Imola and Mugello, heading back to Europe for 2 Italian circuits, before a trip to the Outback around Bathurst, which will be such a challenge, especially with this multi-class. If you've got any of these guys out of the order, coming up through those mountainous hills will be pretty tricky if you catch up with the car at the wrong time. And then we round off the final race of the season around the tricky and tight Brands Hatch circuit, which will definitely be a great one to end our championship. That'll take us all the way through until the 3rd of March, can you believe it? So we're not even in to 2026 yet. 2025, I'm one step ahead. 2025, and we're already looking ahead to March. Okie dokie then. Sorry, Dara. Go on. Crack on.
I was going to say it's going to be one of those calendars where we get into 2025 and it only finishes before it starts. We saw it at the end of last season now with the 10 weeks. You know, we had the first 5-6 weeks. No drop rounds were applied. When the drop rounds started to be applied, it really did feel like the calendar got condensed, but it's still going to be a good couple of months. But looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've got quite a while actually in this practice session remaining, so we can take a look, Dara. I think we can have a little look through some of these guys' liveries and see if we can pick out some favourites. Oh, as we see a spinning Porsche there on that tricky chicane, that's going to be a disaster for some of these drivers. And if you can just bear with me, I'm going to try and fix the timing tower because we've got more drivers in here than I thought we would.
That's always a happy problem, isn't it? To have 7 more drivers than we previously expected. You could see everybody getting themselves in. That's what, 27, 38 in the top 3 classes alone. And off the bottom, we've got 45. That's a 46 poking off the bottom. And it's great to have so many names so early on into the season. And still in that kind of holiday period, of course, between Christmas and New Year. New Year, of course, in... what's that, 28 hours time? So drivers still getting some good practice in. I think we'll see who's been able to get a little bit more practice in and who's had a little bit more time having a wonderful Christmas and Boxing Day, and with all the celebrations that sometimes go with that, with who's had a little bit less practice, let's say. But looking forward to seeing who's going to get the edge. William Humphrey, no surprise that we're seeing him towards the top of the timesheets in the GT4 Pro. Of course, so quick last season in the GT4s, but also good to see a couple of new names. Marius Hibmer, Ben Smith, Thomas Pugh, not here last season in the GT4s, but they're putting their names up pretty early, it seems.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I just want to do this before we do anything else and see how many we can squeeze on there. We can probably get away with a few more on this one. Maybe 50 is too much to ask. 45 I'll have to do. There it is. Let me jump back here. Happy days. 10 in each class. And God, look at all that. And that's something, Dara, that you may or may not have seen. I'm sure you know about it. But we have that new debris system in play as well. So you can see all the gravel getting flicked up onto the track. Something that's caused a few problems for a couple of the drivers from a technical point of view, a hardware point of view. Hopefully it doesn't cause us any problems today. But as those guys go really wide on the entry to the chicane, they're going to flick a lot of gravel back across the track.
Yeah, because I actually bring it in about a month ago now or so, didn't they? So it will be affecting some of the drivers in ways that they may not necessarily know, but I do think we had it in. I'm not sure if we had it in for a Zolder race. I've done a couple of Zolder commentaries in the last couple of months, and there was one race where we definitely had debris on the track. I'm not sure if that was ESR, but it definitely can be a problem. We see it down, particularly at that chicane where Stephen Donnelly has just flown through, and down here at this turn 7-8 complex of corners. If drivers go wide and kick up some gravel, you can see it on the outside of the track there, it will get onto the road. It will really impact the drivers, and it's something that we're going to have to be wary of as we get through the 30-minute races. If it starts to be kicked up on lap 1, then we may see a couple of issues throughout the rest of the race.
Absolutely right. So a quick rundown of the classes then in the final 6.5 minutes here. Then we've got a heavy GT4 class and a slightly lighter TCR class. 33 in the GT4s, only 27 in the TCR. So not too different, but obviously that might affect the championship a little bit. I believe it's fairly equal, however, in both of those classes. We've got 16 drivers in the top split of the GT4s. We've got 20 drivers in the top split of the TCRs. In fact, no, we don't. We've got a few less than that. How many is that? The numbers are all thrown off in the spreadsheet, so I'm going to just do some quick maths. 15.
Yeah, can we...
15 and 15, right down the middle.
Well, hang on. We've got... let's see. We've got 16 for the pros in the GT4, 17 for the AMs, and then is it...
15 and 13 in the TCRs, I think.
Okay. Well, that's good. It's good to see it equally split then. Kind of what we want to see. We'll see where the crossover is between some of the drivers. Of course, a lot of it was done on the I rating of the guys when they signed up. So, with the exception of a couple, everybody in the Pro will have a higher I rating than everybody in the AM. Like I said, there's a couple of exceptions, but that may be drivers that have been here for quite a long time. Things like that. Particularly in the TCRs, I think we've got James Hayworth in the Pro, even though his iRating is slightly lower. But again, really, there's only one or two exceptions throughout the entire field. It's going to be the better drivers by the iRating in the Pro, and the drivers that could do with a little bit of an improvement in their iRating in the AM. But we'll see if that can happen throughout the rest of the season. But it does mean that the drivers in the AM category that are fighting with the Pros really do deserve to be there, because they're punching above their weight in terms of the iRating. So going to be really interesting to see. But nicely sized grids as well. I mean, even though we've got 13 and 14, that is still more than enough to have some great championship battles.
Yeah, it really is. Not too many to get confused by either. I think we can break this down nicely and really sort of dissect a lot of these individual championships. Now, I do want to look at some liveries before we run out of time, so let's have a little scan through. We've got Logan McKenzie here, the number 4 US driver. He's in the Hyundai, and he's driving for a new team, Team Shelter. Can't really go wrong with a little, just, all black livery. He's got a little shade on there of something. Is that like a camo? Maybe, and a few little pieces of memorabilia, it looks like, on there. As well as that a dog, I think? Or it could be a llama, but I'm not quite sure. It looks like a dog to me.
Wolf?
Could be a wolf. Looks like quite a cute wolf, but possibly.
Polar bear?
Possibly.
Was it?
That one might be a bit of a stretch. Let's have a look.
I think it's a dog.
That's definitely a dog.
Yeah, that's a dog.
That's definitely a dog. Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's always fun to see what the drivers do on the off-season with their liveries, isn't it?
It certainly is. Here's another one. Flatline Racing sticking with what they've got something to say about Flatline Racing. They're absolutely taking over the championship. They've got 4 teams in the entrance to this season. Sorry, they've got Flatline Racing, they've got Flatline Racing Blue, Flatline Racing Green, and Flatline Racing Red. So they've got 4. I think it's only 11 drivers. Is it? Or I think it says 11 drivers that they've got in total on this grid. So absolutely overwhelming. Andrew, I believe, is the one responsible for this. So he's gone around and found everyone without a teammate and said, why don't you come over to Flatline Racing? And a lot of them have said, absolutely.
Yeah, I was noting that actually. I was trying to fill in the little spreadsheet that we have, and with the team names. And from what I had originally done a few weeks ago, with quite a few privateers, I realised that I had to start filling in a lot of those privateers when I updated it with Flatline Racing. So yeah, they really have picked up quite a few. We only have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only 8 drivers that are officially privateers at the moment. So really is a team-heavy championship this season, which is great, of course. We've got the Flatline cars, we've got a couple of the Axis Simsport cars and teams as well. Ignium Sparker featuring as well. Of course, you can't forget the Glass Tech DXT team, hey Joe?
Exactly.
They'll be absolutely flying. And I heard that they're all champions, aren't they?
They are, and I'll give a little speech, not a speech, Christ, it's not that bad, but I'll give a little summary about that in a moment. But first, I wanted to highlight this, the new DXT livery here. This one is the Tetley T, and I believe we have 2 other types of T, or maybe just one other type of T. We'll try and find who they are. I'm not sure if any of them are on track at the moment, but we can see Danny Weir heads around the final corner. He's sponsoring the Tetleys. And it's a new look livery. We saw Ashley Brooks there just a moment ago. He's actually a privateer, not racing for DXT, but he is sporting the traditional DXT colours, cyan, magenta, sort of black and silver. That was designed by Matt Hoyland. He threw himself a livery and handed it over to Ash ahead of this season. And I really want to try and find the other DXT driver, but I'm not sure. Martin Kenyon, perhaps? Is this the one? Yes, it is. This is the Yorkshire T, I think it is. Yep, there we go. Yorkshire T. So we got the pair of them, and obviously their teammates alike. And who is that? Oh, there's PG. There's PG right behind him. So all kinds of Ts. Are we official
enough to have to say that other Ts are available, or can we just get away with it, do you reckon?
I think we can probably just get away with it. That's a big cluster of cars going through the chicane. But yeah, I mean, you're right, other Ts are available. Some better Ts are available, if you were to ask me. But yeah, we've got the Yorkshire, we've got the PG, we've got the Tetleys. So that could dominate the question. Get your puns ready, Dara. I'm not quite sure if I can think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure they'll come out in abundance throughout the course of the season.
I think if we use too many, Joe, I think we'll be in hot water with the viewers. Is that early enough?
That's early enough. That is early enough, mate. That's early enough. You've pulled out all the stops to bring that one out, haven't you? So this is the first look then at Glass Tech, and what Dara was talking about earlier, was that we've managed to put together a team between myself and the guys at DXT to have a full team of champions. So Yannis Zolder, the Season 3 Premier at the time actually, GT3 champion. And we also have Mr. Francois Brandet, who's here rocking the livery that I thought they would all be wearing, but Yannis perhaps not, which is courtesy of Matt Hoyland, so a great livery in my biased opinion. With a makeshift logo on there, combination of the two GlassTech logo and the DXT logo, so we'll keep an eye out for that machine as it heads around the corner. I'm going to do a quick Trading Paints refresh just in case, because I didn't do that at any point during the session, so we might see a couple of white paints while we qualify, but better to see them now than during the race.
Yeah, but it is great to see all the teams and drivers moving teams and getting themselves into a couple of new groups, as to say, and just to see these drivers get ready for a brand new season with some different surroundings, with a few different drivers to work with over the course of this 10 race endeavour. So really looking forward to seeing how a couple of these teams do go, and I think the DXT team is going to be a bit of a favourite of the viewers and probably of us personally, Joe, especially if we can get a couple of good puns in there along the way. And I think we'll have more than enough time if we've got 10 weeks and a couple of races where I think we're going to see quite a lot of action. I'm thinking Long Beach, as you mentioned earlier. I'm thinking Virginia as well could be a good circuit. I know it's, again, you mentioned not one that we've necessarily been to much before, but it can be such an interesting circuit. Tight, technical, a bit like Zolder. The walls are slightly further away, but I think we're going to get the same kind of racing. And if last race is anything to go by, and what today should be anything to go by, it will hopefully be another cracker. But looking forward to it. Humphrey on his outlap, though. Good to get qualifying underway. And who can get the first pole of the season, Joe?
Yeah, well, a bit of pressure. I mean, not too much pressure, but obviously this man, highlighting him for a reason. He lapped this time a few weeks ago, and he won himself the first GT4 championship. Back again, this time, though, in the favoured Porsche. So he obviously did well to compete this time last season in the Mercedes. One of the only drivers to do that so high up the elite standings in the GT4s. But this time he comes back in the Porsche, which was clearly the most favoured, the most dominant car that we had on track last season. And so Humphrey doesn't have too much, maybe not too much expectation, but I think he'll be definitely eager to try and get a good result tonight. Start the championship as he means to go on, see if he can lead it and if he can stay ahead. So the man here, he's just setting off now on his first flying lap. He may as well ride on board with the Brit as he heads around and see if he can put in a bit of a championship lap to set down the first time of the evening. He's now making his way toward the end of the first sector through turn 4. A little lift as he head through the right-hander, and now one of the trickiest braking zones on the track, in my opinion. The chicane, very, very tricky to get it right, very wrong, sorry. And also on the exit there, if you hit that sausage curb too much on the right-hand side, it can absolutely send you off, sometimes even into space. I've seen cars come fully off the front axle, slam back down on the track, and it's really not a pretty sight, to be honest. Down the gears now into the second of the two chicanes, and now through, this is what is turn 7, although it's multiple corners built into one, flat out up the hill, and now a little kink before the braking zone into turn 8. So far so good, it seems, for William, who may well be one of the first drivers to cross the line. Looking down the timing sheet, a couple of others are around him. Danny Weir's not going to be too far behind. John Ludbrook all the same. Only one more braking zone to go. The final chicane at turn 10, and then we can see what our first lap time is going to be to set the pace for the rest of the session.
Yeah, Humphrey then out of the final corner up towards the line. Yannis Zolder, I think, is going to just about set a lap time first, but it's not going to be particularly competitive compared to what Williams going to set. Yannis with a 35.7, and there we go, immediately been 34.5 for William Humphrey. The GT4s obviously getting the lap times in slightly earlier. A couple of the TCRs getting in there as well. Alok Iyengar getting it up there for the TCR Pros. Let's see how competitive that will be. You can see the time difference between the classes isn't huge, well, between the categories, I should say, between the GT4s and the TCRs. It's not massive, but it's going to be enough to clearly have a difference throughout the 30 minutes worth of racing. But early lap times coming in, a lot of drivers getting an early time on the board, getting that banker lap time set, and William Humphrey, unsurprisingly, with the advantage in the GT4 Pros, but it's looking close in the other three categories right now.
Yeah, highlighting here Logan McKenzie. He's making his ESR debut tonight, and his first lap good enough for provisional pole position at the front of the TCR Pro Grid of 1:38.7. Two drivers just about within a tenth of a second off behind him. You can see all the gravel on the left-hand side of the track there. That's going to be tricky if anybody gets forced offline as they head 2 by 2 into that chicane. But for now, it's looking good for Logan. He's set an improved lap time in the sector time in the first sector and the second sector. 5 sectors around this circuit according to iRacing, and so he's going to want to continue that. The Hyundai now making its way through the second sector, and we're seeing some improvements further down there. Gordon Hales has taken the time away from Andrew Fellows, 8 tenths clear, so nothing that Andrew can't improve on. But Hales, a new name as well. Be interesting to see if any of these guys are really fighting out of their division, or if they're all going to be pretty competitive by the time qualifying comes to a close.
Yeah, it's that kind of early stage of the season where we don't necessarily know how it's going to lie in the first qualifying of the season. And Zolder is a circuit that is very particular, especially with a lot of the gravel on the circuit. It may give a couple of anomalies, but we won't really be able to work that out until the next few weeks. Charlie Stottard getting a lap in, Brandon Smith as well in the GT4 AMS, with Sergio Ferreira popping it up to P2 in the TCR Pros. Great to see even more names coming. I think it's Marius Hibmer in the GT4 Pros that's gone up into P2 as Gross, I think that is, or Grobe, depending on how that's spelled exactly, will be up into P8 in the GT4 AM. But there are a couple of drivers, the likes of Robin Noel Brown, who I remember being very good in the Evo class towards the back end of last season. Of course, now in the AM category, split into 2 rather than 3 classes for Season 2. Let's see how he can get on. And one of those drivers I think we're going to have to keep a keen eye on, because it could be a very interesting battle for him in his class.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. Here's Robin Noel Brown. He was pretty competitive at certain circuits last season alongside, will it be his teammate John Ludbrook? Let me just take a quick look at this to be sure, because they were definitely pretty much together. Yes, John is with the GP2 Camé group, so these two teammates at the moment currently locking out the front row of the grid in the GT4 AM class. Liam Fraser gets himself up into the top 10 down there at the bottom of the GT4s as things stand. Nothing changing too much. Sergio Ferreira, he's popped up and set a lap time just in behind Mr. McKenzie. And Jay Corley, another one to keep an eye out for. He's doing very well at the moment, taking part in lots of officials, lots of well, he's creating a lot of content, I'm seeing, actually, so Jay will definitely fancy his chances. Lots of times changing up and down here. That's Nils Kula, who's just taken another dog livery. He's just taken the provisional pole time in the GT4 AM class, and it looks like he might keep that, because a lot of drivers are actually finished their lap times already. Thomas Pugh, he's still flying. Looks like he's been in the gravel, just up to toe with his left rear in the gravel there at the exit of the first corner, and there is an example of him nearly getting sent to space.
Yeah, not quite, but it is so easy to do, especially when you're pushing the margins at that chicane. It feels like you can use a little bit more of the track than you actually can, so you've got to be very careful in how you go about it. Interestingly enough, I know we were talking earlier about there being a split in terms of the iRacing between the Pro and the AM. I think pretty much everybody in Pro in the GT4s at the moment is ahead of everybody in AMs, but it's so close. You can see that the pole time, oh, actually, no, that proves me wrong there. It's actually pretty well split. But you can see how close all the lap times are, was my point. The pole times currently in the Pro and the AM are only split by about 6 tenths of a second. And as you look down the list, I mean, we have got, 4 thousandths, 2 thousandths splitting a couple of these drivers. So it really, really is a close battle between all of these guys. And there you can see most of the GT4s is by less than a second and a half, and this isn't the shortest of lap times either, so great to see that.
Yeah, and we can see the transition between the slowest of the GT4s into the quickest of the TCRs is actually very, very tight. Less than a tenth of a second separating Matt Stace and Sergio Ferreira, which is an interesting dynamic, actually, whether we'll see some of these guys battling not only out of class but also out of category. And, when we talk about straight line speed, cornering capability, it's something that will be really tricky to manage as well, because obviously you don't want to get involved in a race that's somebody else's, but also you want to get on with it and get round and win your race as soon as you can. So be interesting, especially at the race start. I'm not sure if you're aware, Dara, we can't actually split the heats So when we start the second round, the second race in every week, it will be exactly where these guys finish. So we're going to have some TCRs mixing it in on the grid with some of the GT4s. Not the case when we start the first race, that will be split by class, but the second one will be very, very tricky for some drivers who might find themselves in a bit of an awkward position, being surrounded by some GT4s, for example.
Sounds like fun for us though, doesn't it, up here
Certainly
to talk
does.
about some of those. If the GT4s and the TCRs are going to be going at it through the opening sector of the race, so I think a few drivers will be trying to avoid that. We may see a little bit more conservative driving from the GT4s in race one. They don't want to put themselves into positions where they could find themselves spinning around, dropping down 20-30 seconds, maybe having to retire from the race, because then they're going to be in a world of pain if they weren't already going to be hurt last season. They feel even worse this season, so we're going to be very careful, I'm sure. Mark Parkhurst stopping on the circuit there, but we've still got a couple of drivers. Charlie Stottard is one of those.
Well, he's just on a slow lap. They're all finished. I was going to say quickly, we were riding on with Charles Wimbley, who's making his ESR debut tonight as well, and he is the only BMW in the entire session. And I would wonder if he's the only BMW in the entire championship, given that we have 52 drivers with us tonight. Only 8 guys missing. And you'd think that not many of those will be driving the BMW. So interesting to see how he gets on as the Porsche kicks up the gravel out of the rears. And I must say, a highlight, what is a lovely livery. That chrome texture on the gold is doing things to me. And I'm a big fan of this one. I'm a big fan of this one. This is Charlie Stothard, who's not racing with Dale and William this season. And instead, if I can find his name, he is racing with KXR Racing, which will be at the top there on the just above the sunstrip on the front of his livery, and a nice slow in lap for Mr. Stothard, which will conclude qualifying. Liam Fraser still on the track, although he's completed all of his lap times, and so the grid is set. It's William Humphrey who will lead the way in the GT4 Pros. Nils Kula in his debut will take the pole time for the AMS, and then Sergio Ferreira, another debutant for the TCR. And Gordon Hales. In fact, look at that. So many new names. Nils, Sergio, Logan, Gordon, all up there, right? And Ben Smith, of course, and Marius right at the top of the Pro class, all mixing it in with the big boys toward the front of the classes.
Yeah, and good to see. And nice to see the new names getting themselves involved in and amongst some of the more regular faces that we've had over particularly in the TCRs and the GT4s in the last couple of seasons. So delighted to see those guys. Really looking forward to seeing how we can get this race underway and how good the racing quality is going to be. Hopefully we get some good battles for the lead in all 4 of our classes. And with that kind of qualifying session to display how close the grids are, I have no doubt that we will.
Here we go then. We've got 50 names to get through, so I better get cracking. William Humphrey picks up exactly where he left off, a time of 1:34.537 for the Glasstec DXT driver. He will start on the front row ahead of Ben Smith for Ignium Motorsports. Less than half a tenth away was Ben from taking pole position, but he'll have to settle for the front row of the grid. In behind them, it's Marius Hibma ahead of Thomas Pugh, rounding off the second row of the grid, ahead of Janis Olber and Niels Kula in the top of the GT4 AM class. Adam Antherton ahead of Robin Noel Brown and John Ludbrook, with Francois Brandet the top 10, your Evo champion from last season. Stephen Donnelly, Jeremy Orlemans, Charlie Stothard and Klaas Whelan. Of course, we have a rolling start now, Dara, so we have a lot more time than I thought. Klaas Whelan will be P14 on the 7th row of the grid, ahead of Luke Bailey for the new team, KXR Racing. Dean Shisby, a new driver with us as well. He's taking part in the GT3 Championship for Moonshiners Racing Club. Joe Sparra and Josh Ostick will be on row 9 for JSD and Flatline Racing. Eduard Grob, but I actually think it is Gross, I'm not going to lie. He's Dutch, and I believe the other Gross that I know is the Swiss, so it might be a different pronunciation, but try and find that one out. He will start ahead of P20, Mr. Brandon Smith, the US driver. We scroll through then, and we'll find Liam Fraser ahead of Jacob Jenner, and then Charles Wimbley ahead of Jeff Hibbert in P24. Jacob Bonner and Daniel Poole will start ahead of Matt Stace and Sergio Ferreira, with Logan McKenzie, Andrea Muntean and Jay Corley. Do we have a rolling start here? I'm not too sure. No, we don't. Good thing I stopped. We're about to get underway then. The pace car was on the track. Oh, we do have a rolling start, but I don't see the pace car. I'm not seeing any cars. Why are they all disappearing?
Oh.
This is odd. Anyway, to the front of the grid. There we go. We can continue where we left off. So, where did we get up to? We got up to Daniel Poole in P26 ahead of Matt Stace and Sergio Ferreira. Andrew Fellows has already crashed, according to the timing sheet. I'm not sure if that's just minor contact or if he's maybe hit the pit wall or something. Anyway, we continue on. Logan McKenzie ahead of Andre Mountain, Jay Corley and Gordon Hales in P32. Jaden Scotton and Alok Iyengar in P34 with Anthony Hilton and James Howarth in P36. Kevin Marshallsey and Max Nevincharney ahead of Ashley Brooks and Keith Colhoun. And then Andrew Fellows, Scott Malcolm, Martin Kenyon, Reese Kitley, Rob Smith, the top 45. Hussein Sarakadesla, P46 with Steve Rubino, Mark Parkhurst, Jason Haddington, Danny Weir, David Randles and Dean Sargent. Down there at the back, the two drivers there on the back row of the grid, not setting a lap time. And it'll be interesting then. Danny Weir, 6 seconds off the pace. I don't think that'll be his genuine pace. I think you'll probably find a little bit more of that as the race goes on.
Looking forward to seeing how these guys get underway. We've all been waiting for so long, haven't we, to get this one going. Pace car will come in, of course, at the end of this lap, and it will release the field. I will say very quickly, I think it could be Grobe, not Gross, only because, of course, that said it's a special B, and I've looked at the Discord of Edward, and there's no special B. It is just a normal B, so I think we could go with Grobe, but we can always check that. It's the wonder of being able to talk to them. We'll double check that for next week. But it is nice that we have these new challenges, Joe, with new names, because it means there's more people. There's new people into the series. Absolutely,
mate, and that's something that we highlighted, well, that I highlighted last week in the GT3s, is that having filled 2 grids now, we have at least 60 new faces, if not more, because not everybody who competed in last season's championship will have come back. And of course, with 120 drivers, that means that at least half of them are brand new. So, Martin Kenyon has also crashed. I wonder what's going on down there. Maybe is this just contact just between drivers? I'm not sure, but some guy is getting pretty feisty already. Andrew Fellows, actually, and Martin Kenyon, the 2 drivers in the same place, it looks like. Those guys are having a lot of catch-up to do. And we're about to be underway. William Humphrey has control over the pack from the green. He can determine the race start up until the line. It looks as though Ben Smith's gone a little bit early there, has he? I'm not sure. No, he's still behind William Humphrey. So Humphrey gets us underway. He will lead Smith, Hibner, Pugh and Aubert through turn 1 as we go. Let's make sure. A big puff of smoke there toward the back of the grid, and there's a spin. Who's that off already? That's Stephen Donnelly, and Francois Brandet's gone off the circuit, and I think that's Charlie Stothard who's round as well on the other side of the circuit. All the TCRs now making their way through the circuit. I think these guys have done a good job to get themselves through. William Humphrey leads the way then, but Ben Smith has dropped behind Marius Imber at the start. He drops down into 3rd, but the battle will rage toward the first chicane. Yeah, turn 1, 3 into 1 just wasn't going to go, and those 3 skiddling each other out. But good start for William Humphrey. Marius Hibner, the Danish driver, having a great launch. Ben Smith, it did look like he went slightly early. Maybe he tried to undercompensate for that, and in fact lost the position to Hibner towards turn number 1. There's Brandon Smith working his way through. A spin going around at the chicane. I'm not too sure who that is. That's Jacob Jenner in the 109 Cuda Motorsport car. That's a difficult place to get it righted again, but I think he's just about done a good enough job. Difficult launch from a couple of these guys, but generally, for having so many cars on the circuit, pretty clean start in the first sector. Yeah, really not so bad actually. 3 or 4 drivers with mistakes. There was a flash of the headlight. Dean Shisby, he's round as well. No. Looks like a big crash. Another one involving, I think, is that Charlie Stothard again, or is that somebody else? I'm still obviously getting used to these liveries. I know that is Charlie's livery, but it might not be him exactly. Dean doing the right thing, waiting for the whole field to pass, but that is a painful sight, especially watching the other category, the TCRs, coming flying past. Now Dean can get himself underway. And there's a battle. There's another one. That's Josh Ostick. He's around, and that's Edard Grobe who's with him as well on the grass on the exit of the final corner. Really difficult. He's got to sit there and wait now, the pair of them. And in fact, Edard's actually in a better position. If he would go around the left-hand side of the McLaren, then he could just scoot on and rejoin safely. because the McLaren is kind of helpless there until the rest of the field pass, and now they can resume picking up all the way down at the back of the field. What an opening lap that was, but as you say, clean mostly, but obviously a few guys with some difficulties.
Yeah, it was clean until I said something, didn't I? This is how it goes, isn't it, when you're up in the commentary box? Yannis Zolder, though, he's had a good launch in that bright pink to white and black livery. It looks pretty Barbie at the front, then looks pretty Oppenheimer at the back. I know that's probably an old pop culture reference at this point, but hey, that's Yannis doing some good work. Of course, we were talking pre-show, Joe, about how Yannis started towards the back a lot last season, not doing that so far this season, and a driver of his quality. It's going to be interesting to see how he can go towards the front. Brandon Smith is off the road. The American 116 driver has to try and right himself there as they go side by side in behind. I think they'll just about make it through there.
Yeah, you're right about Yannis. He was not really part of the front runners of the championship this time last season. He started from the back of the grid off and just enjoyed the process of overtakes, but now he's well and truly in the fight along with his new teammates. Francois was in the chat earlier letting me know that Yannis did apply the livery right before the start of the session, but obviously it hasn't come through in time because I did refresh those liveries. So this time next week we'll have the full team rocking the livery, which we thought they all would be, but that's okay because, as you said, it's a pretty good one nonetheless. Barbie at the front, Oppenheimer at the back. I quite like that reference.
Yeah, I feel like it's a reference from about 16 months ago, but hey.
It's timeless,
you know.
mate. Well, I don't know about Barbie. Barbie's
Exactly.
not timeless, but Oppenheimer most certainly is timeless.
Well, yeah, that's probably a popular opinion in this part, isn't it? I'm not going to disagree with that by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, Yannis, we'll see what he can do. Of course, really good in the GT3s as well. We'll have to see how he goes on a Thursday night in Split 1, of course. But that will, of course, continue this Thursday. Hidmer with a bit of a difficult run through the chicane at 6 and 7. Ben Smith had one through. Was that a slowdown maybe from Hidmer in his Aston Martin? Regardless, William Humphrey will continue to stretch his advantage. 2 seconds now is the gap, and with a little bit of a buffer between himself and the drivers he really is racing on the circuit, means that it's looking pretty good for William Humphrey for the time being. A reminder that is worth noting, top 10 after this race will be reversed for race number 2, so if William Humphrey does go on to win, he's not going to have it all his own way going into the second half an hour. Look at the gravel. You wouldn't want to be precious about your windscreen in those kind of conditions.
No, we see the first time there. That was one of the GT4s getting past the TCR. First time we see that live, of course, and we saw earlier there just William Humphrey getting past his teammate Francois Brandet, who's already a lap down, already under blue flag. So a disastrous start for the likes of Brandet, Kenyon, Wellen, and Danny Weir has just entered the pit lane as well. At 2 moves up the inside there, 1 GT4, 1 TCR. Andrew Fellows loses out to Scott Malcolm, who must be in the class ahead. Yes, he is. So Scott in the TCR Pro category. Andrew hasn't lost any points there, leads the way at the moment in the TCR AM class, picking his way through nicely, not fighting the battles that he doesn't need to. And he's got James Howarth in behind him, who's going to make the pass. There is the other PG Tips DXT livery, and Ashley Brooks is now the next car behind him, so we can see his challenger up ahead. That's Andrew Fellows, and there goes the only BMW that we have on the track. Charles Wimbley makes his way through past Ashley into turn 1, puts a car between him and his rival of Andrew Fellows. Let's see how these guys get on as the race goes on. 24 minutes to go. Brandon Smith has had an issue. Let's see if we can catch up with him.
Yeah, a few drivers who've had a bit of an up and down start to the day so far. He's coming into the pit lane is Brandon Smith, trying to do a bit of a slalom. Ooh, that is the battle between Joe Spara there, coming through into the turn 7 complex of corners. He's just about to be overtaken as well by Jacob Bonner. Bonner on the inside, great move there from Bonner Commitment, really affording him the position. Jeff Hibbard as well, just in behind. I think the car behind this that is looking to get involved as they work their way into turn 8 through the little chicane at turn 9 they go. It's really much of a chicane when you're getting on the power, but for Joe Spara, difficult moments. Jacob Bonner flying through. The issue for these guys, though, is that they've got 14 seconds to anybody in their class in front.
Yeah, it got very, very dicey there between Spara and Jacob ahead. He just moved slightly, he didn't move under braking, but he just came over slightly to kind of put Joe off. I think he did exactly what he intended to do. That did just upset Joe's line ever so slightly, and now he's got a better run there. Jacob's got a better run out of the first corner. Little wobbly Mercedes ahead as well. That's Liam Fraser, I believe, who's also new on the scene at ESR. He's with the Moonshiners Racing Club along with Dean Sheesby. Robin Smith, he's had an issue. More and more starting to get picked up. Now we'll have to do a quick summary of the incidents when we get a moment, but it looks as though Jacob could be eyeing up a move here anytime soon. And actually, Joe Sparrow has just been passed by 2 cars. That must be a slowdown by Joe, unless he got a terrible exit out of turn 4 as they slow it down to go through the chicane now. That's Sparrow down a handful of places, riding in P8 currently in the GT Pro class. He's got Jeff Hibbert in behind him, looking to put some pressure. 2 Porsches getting chased down by that hungry Mercedes. Not the kind of car that you want to see in your mirrors, especially when you've got so long left to go in this race. As things stand though, Humphrey leads from pole, Nils Kula leads from his class pole, and Logan McKenzie and Fellows the same, I believe.
Yeah, it's an interesting little dynamic at the start of this race. We're not necessarily seeing the kind of lead margins that we saw towards the back end of last season just yet, but of course there is still time for that to develop. Logan McKenzie doing his best to try and pull away from absolutely everybody else. This little melee is going on in the back of the GT4 AM category. Charlie Stottard, it's not just the AM category, it's a couple of the pros as well. He's fighting away with Andre Muntian as they work their way in towards the final chicane at turn number 10, but Stottard sitting in behind for the time being. He's got Andre just in front, and then Daniel Poole another 8 seconds up the road. But got to be careful because this is quite a group of cars. There's a couple of TCRs at the back of it as well. So it's an interesting little group of cars. But for Charlie Stottard, he's going to have to be trying to focus on getting through on the drivers in front. Otherwise, he's going to be under pressure from a car that should be 3 to 4 seconds slower than him.
Yeah, I'm going to just take us back to the start of the race while we get a moment, see what we can pick up here. There's an incident for William Humphrey right toward the start. Let's see if we can pick out what happened. Maybe that was before we even got underway. We do not need to go that far back. Then we had Martin Kenyon with an incident, and then it's this one, I believe, just before the green flag. This is when Kenyon picked up more damage, and then Gordon. This will be the one. Gordon got damaged. I think they're almost supposed to be bunching up and picking up little pieces of contact. Very tricky with such a big field to keep everybody so tight. Oh, wow, look at that. He actually got taken off the circuit before the green flag was even dropped there. That's not an ideal one for whoever did that. And then this was our first green flag incident as the cars head down toward the inside. Charlie late on the brakes up the inside of the Mercedes. He's just not going to see him coming there. And I think you would have just turned in. Let's watch that one back from the gyro cam. You can see the Mercedes ahead. He's got the Porsche on the inside. Then Charlie makes an opportunistic, unnecessary move, really. Spins the Mercedes round, loses the rear for good measure, and he watches the entire field drive on by.
Yeah, trying to get it righted, but then there's just more and more, and they're still coming. They're still coming around turn 1. You still can't move there. It's just a horrible feeling just to sit and wait for so long before you're able to get yourself back underway. That's Klaus Wellen, the German, going around and around and around on the exit of turn 4. A couple of other drivers joining him in that tyre barrier. Lucky, really, that we didn't get that 117 car bounce back onto the racing line. Could be much worse than it was in the end. A couple of more drivers. Jacob Jenner getting all out of shapes, coming in towards the chicane. I think we saw this. Yeah, Jenner going around and having to right himself, reversing very smartly and getting back onto the racing line without proving to be too much of an issue. But a few drivers coming into issue. Dean Sheensby here as well. Oh my word.
That's not what you like to see. He couldn't really do anything there, Dean. He couldn't see what was ahead of him. Let's watch that from a different angle, see if we can see what happened there. The car ahead rightly slowed down, but when you're so close to one another, you can see him spinning, does the right thing, slows down, but Dean's just not prepared for it. Very nasty incident. No one's fault, really. Just one of those things where you're not expecting the car ahead of you to slam the brakes on. That's the one that we caught with Dean sitting there, having let the entire field by. Max Nevencharny, he's also had a problem in the TCR. This is down toward the final corner here. Is he going to get a helping of contact here? Or is it going to be of his own accord? No, he just heads straight into the pit lane. Anthony Hamilton's the next driver. Let's see what happens here. Side by side with the GT4, and he also dips off into the pit lane. I think that is everything for now, so we can head back to the live scenes and see what's happening. That's not a bad race recap at the moment. It seems like I am stuck in replay mode.
Ah,
Bear with me. See what I can do about this.
We can have a quick look at Charles Windley going through turn number 1. I was looking in the chat, and Rob making a good point that it's good to see that Andrew's controlling things at the front of the TCR AMS. It is nice to see that we have got a few of the drivers that have been with us for a while really come into their own, especially early on into the season, give a good boost of confidence as we run towards the end of the opening race. We've still got about half of race number 1 to go, but
Do it. Right. Happy days. We're back. And God, people have got a very short attention span. We had 30 viewers, now we've got 9. So they've all just bailed on us, which is well, maybe to be expected. But we are back. There has been some changes in the order while we were away. Apologies for that, but I don't know. iRacing clearly just takes too much resource away from me. Ashley Brooks has taken the lead. In fact, look at this now. It's happening as we speak. These two drivers there battling for the lead of their respective classes. It's Hussein who's going to go up the inside. Ashley around the outside, left him barely any room on the left-hand side there. He does leave him room now, moves back over to the right-hand side of the circuit. This is what we want to see. Two of these drivers in the same machinery going toe-to-toe for the race lead. Ashley comes over, gives him a nudge off the track and says, I'll have that position, mate. And Huss rejoins, actually. He will have a slowdown, but he's still there, and he's allowed another TCR driver to come through who's out of class, I believe. That's Kevin Marshall, who's in P8, currently in the TCR Pros. But very feisty there. Ashley getting his elbows out. I wonder what happened to Andrew. Yeah, it was really close, rear to front battling there between the front of Fellows' machine as Huss kind of came back across, but they've kept it clean. Netcode could have been a problem there, but they've managed to keep it facing in a straight line. So Hussein reclaims that second position. In fact, no, he doesn't. It's third position now because Gordon Hales, this driver right here, he's got himself in the mix. He's 1.2 seconds behind Ashley with that Audi in between them into the next TCR division. So keep an eyes on this over the next 10 minutes. Ashley runs wide. That could allow Kevin to think about trying to get a move done. Let's watch on for a moment and see. Maybe Kevin can make a move into the final chicane if he gets his exit right here. Ashley earlier on the brakes, I think a little bit there than Kevin was. He's closed the gap ever so slightly. You would expect these drivers to be a little bit quicker. Kevin was 6/10 quicker on the lap earlier, and he will go around the outside. Ashley is going to fight this one, and not much Kevin can do there. All the while, that's going to allow Gordon to close the gap and Hussein to close the gap. Before we know it, we're going to have a four-way battle for the lead of the race for as long as Ashley is defending the cars behind. There's a car off there parked up, the Mercedes. Can't tell who that is. That was actually William Humphrey coming through in the GT4 Porsche that we saw through turn 1. So that's the leader of the field, who's currently 7 seconds ahead of Ben Smith. So a commanding drive so far by Mr. Humphrey at the top of the field. He came steaming through as these guys battle away. I was going to say Andrew Fellows won't be too pleased. He's been left in the mud a little bit here. Now he's got to allow this GT4 traffic through. He's going to get boxed in as they head into the final corner. All the while, Sarah Cadesla, Hales and Brooks all leaving behind. So Fellows was right in there with the Sain at the start of the last lap. And now he's over 3 seconds off the back of the trio who are battling ahead for the race lead. And we'll cut back to this for a brief moment, but then we want to look elsewhere while we can. Gordon, the South African, coming up against Ashley, who's found himself in a favourable position toward the front of the grid a handful of times, but I don't think he's ever really been in a position to fight for a championship right off the start of the season. So Ashley will not want to give this up, as we've already seen one example of with Hussein earlier on. Oh. Yeah, I'm just fixing that now. That happens every time I set up Discord. Wait, no. That's odd. Ah. Sorry, everybody.
Am I on?
There we go. He is back. You are back.
Oh, lovely. Brilliant. Yeah, I was going to mention, to your point, how it is interesting that we're going to have these battles kind of develop throughout the rest of the race. Yes, we're going to have the likes of Gordon Hales fighting with Ashley Brooks, but it won't necessarily impact directly how we get our reverse grid action. Of course, that'll be right at the front of the GT4s. Of course, some of the AMs will get involved in that, and that's going to be critical for them. But for the TCRs, they are going to be able to stay pretty much in the order that they started. So the likes of Logan McKinsey, Jay Cooley, Jaden Scott, and they'll be able to really try and hammer home the advantage that they may be able to have at the end of the opening race. So that's going to be really key to watch. Niels Kula doing a stellar job in the GT4 AMs at the moment. The Latvian driver in the 104 is, pretty comfortably ahead of John Ludbrook. Not necessarily surging up the order to try and get a couple more pros, but he doesn't really need to, does he?
No, absolutely not. You're right. He's keeping himself pretty comfortable at the moment. It'll be a good debut win for him if he can see out the next 5.5 minutes. He's come up behind that Porsche very quickly, gets himself by, and he's already going to be catching up with those TCRs that we saw earlier. So the front of the field really starting to make their way through the pack, and lots of smoke. That's someone off, surely, in the left-hand side there, is it not? That was a lot of smoke. Maybe not, actually. I could have sworn I saw someone go into the pit wall, but no. Nils gets through there nicely, and he's on the back of, I think, is that Steve Urbino, possibly? Yes, it is. He's the next man to get taken in that flat cap hobo racing, which is a familiar sight from last season, well, from the opening season in the TCRs when I was doing that on my own, and he will get past. He's got a big gaggle of those TCR cars to get through before he can call himself home and dry. Let's hope none of them get in the way. Look at that, 6 or 7 cars that he's right in between at the moment, and this will be the pack very shortly who are battling for that race lead. We can see Andrew Fellows once again there, boxed in behind Kevin, the pro TCR driver. Around the outside he goes, past the Audi, and now the inside he goes, past the Hyundai. Very, very tricky for these guys. That's right on board as he does this, actually, because it's interesting to watch the pace difference. And as we said earlier, the cornering capability that these cars have. Let's see how quickly he gets onto the back of Kevin Marshley ahead. And yeah, you're right, Dara. Good result so far. John Ludbrook 1.5 seconds behind. Not really putting him under any sort of pressure, but one mistake and John will be right there.
Yeah, and John Ludbrook is a wise enough head that he'll know exactly what to do in these kind of situations to be able to pounce on any kind of mistake. That's Kevin Marshall say being overtaken then by Niels Kula as we run through turn 4 with him. There's a few dog liveries, aren't there, in the field this season. Niels is no exception. There's a hound on the door. I can't use that early into the season. I'll hold that into my back pocket. Luke Bailey is fighting with Charlie Stottard, though. This is a battle in the GT4s. We've not seen too many battles in the GT4s in the opening race. I think that may change a touch as we get towards race 2. But Luke Bailey and Charlie Stottard trying to get some early points on the board. Remind that in all of these categories, the top 20 will pick up points. So really is looking good for drivers at the moment, considering that there aren't 20 drivers in the class. If you finish a race, you're going to get points.
Absolutely right, and let's remind ourselves that we will have a reverse top 10 in this championship. So at the moment, that will go to Liam Fraser in the Mercedes, so it will be 4 GT4 AM drivers, mixing it in at the front of the field, the first 2 rows, and of course Nils Kula will be involved in that as well, so he might have the pace to really do some damage. William Humphrey will start in P10 as it stands ahead of Jacob Bonner, and obviously none of the TCR guys will be involved. He hasn't got a rear wing, Luke Bailey there. He's missing a rear wing, so that's not going to do him very well through that back section. But yeah, none of the TCR guys will be included in that reverse championship order, sorry, reverse grid order. So yeah, the likes of Ashley will know that if he can finish ahead, he will also start ahead, which is actually an interesting dynamic when we've got the mix of GT4s, but that will rarely, well, probably ever, happen in the TCRs.
Yeah, it's the conundrum that you get when you have this slightly slower class, but not entirely slower class, as we have the TCRs here. Because there really isn't, in the grand scheme of things, that much of a difference. It's not quite like we've got GT4s and some hypercars. It is pretty close in the grand scheme of things. Josh Ostick trying to get through on Charles Windley for P12 in class, down at turn number 2 and 3. He'll have one more lap to do it after this one, but wouldn't mind getting it done on the penultimate tour of this Zolder racetrack. Turn 4 inside line, opportunistic move for the 153. He had a great run of podiums in the pro category at the back end of last season, of course. In the second category, when we had the elite class involved, had a great run of podiums, so really is one driver to watch out for this season, at least early on. Can't quite get through on Charles Windley, but he is absolutely all over the rear and looking for a move everywhere. Maybe at turn 7 he could try it for it.
Yeah, I don't really want to send it up the inside of this chicane. Very tight. Thinks better of it. Josh wise to do so. Gets a good line there. Could be a slowdown if he gets that one wrong, but it looks as though he's okay. Didn't really put his foot down as aggressively as I thought he would, but he really got that tucked in nicely over to the left-hand side. Got a good run here on the BMW. Is he going to think about a move into turn 8 and 9? Oh, he comes ever so close. The BMW has to just chuck himself ever so slightly, and now it's the run through 8 and 9 down toward turn 10. BMW will stay ahead. Holding on to those points at the moment is Mr. Wimbley. We've got Francois Brandet, who has failed to finish. He's in the pit lane alongside Martin Kenyon and Danny Weir. So 3 of those drivers unable to finish. And I think that was actually quite some time ago for some of those drivers. We got another battle going on back here. Oh, and there goes the class leader.
Oh, and got Malcolm going around as well now. Oh, that's Ashley Brooks. Going to get it righted in time, or he's going to have to wait. Gordon Hale, Sanoko Deslafellows, Parkhurst, Rubino all through. He'll get on before Robin Smith, but dropping down to P6. That's gutting for him.
Yeah, Gordon Hales then will inherit the lead. And then he's got Hussein Sarika Desla, who is 5 seconds back. I'm not sure where Ashley was in that moment, but he would probably have not been too far ahead of Gordon, actually. So was that an I don't really want to cut back away from the replay in case the same thing happens again. But it'd be an interesting thing to see, actually. Maybe I should try it, and then we can... oh, it's the end of the race. Oh, would you look at that? William Humphrey has won the opening round, of course. He had a commanding win, nearly 8 seconds clear of Ben Smith. So congratulations to Mr. Humphrey. Ben Smith, great debut for him, ahead of Marius Hibmer on the podium. So some new names finishing toward the front of the field. And then it's going to be Nils Kula ahead of John Ludbrook and Robin Noel Brown, the podium in the GT4 AMS. Logan McKenzie, where is he? He's still on the track. We can see him coming around the line. Let's give him a little bit of a look in as he heads through the final sequence of corners here. The Hyundai for Team Shelter, the number 4 machine, will break through the final turn 10 chicane. Will put his foot to the floor for the final time ahead of the feature round, and he'll win on debut in the TCR Pro Division. Great race, great pace Look at that, 19 seconds ahead of Jaden Scotton, who will finish a lap down, the only TCR driver to finish on the lead lap. Great effort by Logan to stay in with that pace. Jaden Scotton next, and then Jake Corley, the podium in the TCR Pros, ahead of Gordon Hales, who inherited a late lead ahead of Hussein Saraka Desla there to round off the TCR podium. And Dara will do what we normally do, but we're going to each have another one to handle this time round. So we have 5 minutes worth of warm-up, and first we'll run through the finishing positions in each class, starting first with the GT4 Pro class. So William Humphrey, as we said, came across the line first for the Glasstec DXT team, 7.9 seconds ahead of Ben Smith for Ignium Motorsports. The three Brits there rounding off the podium with Thomas Pugh for Axis SimSports Red. Yannis Olber bringing home a good haul of points in P4 ahead of Adam Atherton in P5. Jacob Bonner, Marius Hibmer, Joe Sparrow, good result for Joe in the top 8 of the Pro class ahead of Jeff Hibbert and Jeremy Orlemans rounding off the top 10. It'll be Stephen Donnelly and Josh Ostick next up in the top 12 with Charles Wimbley and Jacob Jenner, the last of the finishers. Francois there, 16 laps down, unable to finish. Let's see if he hangs around to fight from toward the back of the field and carve his way through those TCRs.
I think he'll have to carve his way through some of these AM drivers as well in the GT4s, which were led in the end by Niels Kula, the Latvian driver, the 104, winning relatively comfortably so. Only 4.5 seconds was the gap at the end, but it felt like it was a pretty easy ride for the Latvian driver. John Ludbrook and Robin Noel Brown finishing in second and third to get their seasons underway on the podium. Liam Fraser and Matt Stace in fourth and fifth. A nice little gaggle of cars involving those two. And Daniel Paul, Charlie Stottard and Luke Bailey, as all those drivers made up the top 8, with Edward Grobe and Dean Cheesby inside our top 10. Andre Muntian, Brandon Smith, Klaas Vellen and Reese Kitley are our 14 drivers. All drivers, though, I believe, close enough to pick up their points.
You may well be right there, mate. I was looking elsewhere, sorry, so I couldn't confirm that for you. But that's the GT4s dealt with now. Let's take a look at how the TCR guys lined up in the Pro class first. Logan McKenzie, he's made a great start to his ESR career, and look at that, one lap. He was the only man to finish on the lead lap, so great effort by Mr. McKenzie. He finished ahead of Jaden Scotton for Flatline Racing Green, another debutant, the 53 machine, doing well to get his first podium in his first attempt. Jay Corley next for Team Shelter. He will round off the TCR Pro podium ahead of Alok Inyanga, the 77 privateer, with Keith Calhoun for the Ignium Motorsports ahead of James Howarth for DXT Motorsports in the top 6. Kevin Marshley, the privateer driver, he will finish in P7 ahead of Max Nevenchani, the returning driver who we saw back in TCR Season 1. Good result for Max there, stepping it up. Anthony Hilton will finish in P9 ahead of Scott Malcolm, the last of the finishers. Sergio Ferreira, who had a great effort in qualifying there, also got caught up in some early incidents. He was unable to finish 16 laps down. He will not score any points, but everybody else will.
And over in the AM category for the TCR, it was Gordon Hales who picked up the full complement of 50 points in the opening race of the season. The South African beat out the Turkish driver of Hussein Saraka Desla, who finished in second after that great battle we saw throughout the race. It was Andrew Fellows who rounded out the podium, but only just ahead of Mark Parkhurst, who, it's more difficult to say than you initially think, Mark Parkhurst, with Steve Rubino, a fellow American, in P5, making it 4 nationalities inside the top 4. Ashley Brooks, the second of the Brits in P6, leads a line of them. Robin Smith, Jason Haddington, David Randalls and Dean Sargent inside the top 10. They will all pick up their points, but sadly for Martin Kenyon and for Danny Weir, they were a long way down the order. Didn't finish the race, and so will not pick up any points from the opening round of the season. Let's see what they can do in our second 30 minutes of the evening.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, let's take a look. How long do we have? We've got just over 30 seconds remaining until we get underway with the second of our 2 30-minute races. Here's Francois Brander. He's back on track. He'll be a man on a mission as we look ahead to this final race. Had an incident toward the start. We saw him off there just actually around this corner. He was taken off on the right-hand side of the circuit early doors. He'll be keen to get his foot down, get a move on, and see if he can make up some points. Be interesting to see where he starts, and that's going to be everything said and done, and he's off. Oh, just about keeps it on the tarmac there. Good couple of laps under his belt for Francois. Got an outlap in, got the first couple of sectors under his belt, and now be ready to go at the start of the season. And gets it parked just nicely. Let's get back to pit road. Alright then, Dara. I will hand you over the grid when it appears, and we'll be good to go.
It'll be the most calm grid I've been able to do here at ESR.
Absolutely.
Normally we're absolutely rushing through, aren't we? But it's nice that we can have a little bit of time to talk you through it. But so, race number 2 of the season, it will be Jacob Bonner starting on pole position. The pro driver in the GT4s will get us to green. Liam Fraser leads a bit of a gaggle of our AM drivers with Robin L. Brown, John LeBrook, and Niels Kula inside that top 5. Important for those guys to really stay where they are. Big points in the offing as there's a big gap down to anybody else in the class. Adam Atherton will start in P6 but P2 in class. What can he do from there? Yanis Allbear and Thomas Pugh make up row number 4 with Ben Smith and William Humphrey. The top 2 in race 1 reversed to the 5th row of the grid, and let's see if they can hold on. Of course, they had it all their own way, pretty comfortable, and could manage the pace in the lead. Not going to have the same this time around. Marius Hibner just on the outside looking in, was so close to getting onto that reverse grid, but sadly for him will start in P11. Matt Stace 12th, Joe Spara will be 13th ahead of Jeff Hibbert. Daniel Poole and Jeremy Orlemans are top 16 drivers. Charlie Sottard and Stephen Donnelly are on row number 9 with Luke Bailey and Josh Ostick rounding out our top 20 as we get towards the end of the GT4s inside the top group with Charles Windley and Edouard Grobe. Logan McKinsey is the first of our TCRs. He's got a GT4 directly behind him. I can't imagine Jacob Jenner will be behind him for long, but he will start on the second part of row number 12. Jaden Scotton and Jay Cooley, 2nd and 3rd in the class in race 1, will try and knock off Logan McKinsey from his perch in race number 2. They will go from row 13. Alok Inyagar and Keith Calhoun are on row 14 ahead of James Hayworth, and leader in the AM category for the TCRs, Gordon Hales. Dean Sheesby and Hussein Zargadester are on row 16 with Andrew Fellows and Mark Parker. Steve Rubino and Kevin Marshall are ahead of Ashley Brooks, Andre Montaigne, Robin Smith and Jason Hannington are top 40. Still more drivers in the grid. Max Nevinchanny and Anthony Hilton are on row 21 with David Randalls, Brandon Smith and Malcolm Scott inside our top 45. The top 50 is rounded out by Klaas Vellen, Reese Kitley, Dean Sargent, Martin Kenyon and Sergio Ferreira with Danny Weir. And Francois Brandet rounding out the 52 drivers. Brandet with a lot of work to do. How far through the TCRs and how quickly through the TCRs can he make his way? That's a TCR going quickly through the pack. I'm not too sure what's going on there, Joe.
That was less said the better on that one, I think. The cars haven't even made it to the end of the first sector yet. And that was one of the DXT machines, I believe, who was absolutely flying through the pack, and he's left one of them riddled towards the back of the field. Martin Kenyon. Wow, 7 or 8 drivers here are not on this parade lap. Martin Kenyon, Max Nevinchanny, Marius Himber, Scott Malcolm, Reese Kitley, Andrea Montaigne, Sergio Ferreira and David Randalls not making their way around the circuit, and I've got absolutely no idea what happened there.
It was some... we only caught the end of it as well, didn't we? So really weird little moment.
But he was absolutely flying. He was absolutely
he was almost like he had his blues and twos on and he was going through the middle of the motorway traffic.
Exactly. Maybe he thought the green flag had already dropped. Everyone was having some throttle problems. He was, I'm away, lads, but no. Anyway, we are going to be away shortly. Pit lane is going to peel in, and now that we've got a little bit more time, just to run you through the starting procedure, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Jacob Bonner will lead. He will be able to drop the hammer anytime after the green light, but before the start line. Cars must remain in their own column and not overtake before they individually reach the start line. So theoretically, we should see no overtaking across the entire grid until every car's crossed the start-finish line, and Jacob Bonner gets away, and the car in behind, Liam Fraser, has just been left for dead and he's already down 10 places, nearly 4 wide going into turn 1. I'm not entirely sure what Liam thought was going to happen there, but he's already down into P8, having started the field right toward the front on the front row. 3 wide again, that's not going to go 3 into 1 surely. Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. This is live, but I don't think we're seeing. Oh, it's okay, we're safe. Oh, and there goes one of the Glass Tech cars. That's William Humphrey. Yeah, William Humphrey's in the wall. I cannot get him, there's too much going on. He's going to rejoin nicely. Robin Noel Brown leads ahead of Jacob Bonner and Niels Keuler, who's in the top 3. Yannis Allbear doing well. He's in the top 4 as things stand. Let's take a look how the classes look. Ben Smith is the next driver in the top 5, and a big pack appearing already.
Yeah, Ben Smith is going to be loving this. Oh no, that's that's Jacob Bonner going around now. That's Ben Smith going through in the order. It's not working out at turn 7 for a few of these drivers. Going to rejoin safely on the inside of this complex of corners, and everybody going to work their way through. Everybody, I think, going to make it cleanly through after that incident that we saw right at the front of the field. Kevin Marshall, and Scott Malcolm, I believe that is fighting their way through. They'll get out of turn 8 this time, though, with Allbear in the lead. Robin L. Brown is so far in the lead. He's nearly a full 6 seconds in the lead to Niels Keuler, and I think it's still about 5 seconds to Yannis Allbear. Incredible lead for Noel Brown. Can he stay there?
Yeah, absolutely frantic there at the start. I apologise for the sort of technical stutters. There's a lot for this PC to deal with when we've got nearly 60 cars barrelling down toward the first corner, especially with the new gravel and the new debris system. So I think we're going to get through the worst of it now as the cars start to split up. But yeah, you're absolutely right. 6 seconds ahead. There's a car off. Who's that? Daniel Poole, I believe that is, maybe. Yes, it is. He's okay. The Flatline Racing green car re-emerges back onto the circuit, but still lots going on. Red numbers up and down the timing sheet. James Howarth is potentially going to make a move here around the inside, up the inside of Jake Corley there, who I believe is the car on his outside. He's got Keith Calhoun in behind in the Hyundai. We haven't really looked too much at the TCRs. We focused too much toward the front of the grid. The gravel spraying everywhere. I wish there was a way to turn that off, because that's not going to be doing us any favours. I think next time I might have to turn the particles down a little bit. Even the wiper blades on there, Hussein's wiper blades came on with all the gravel that was flicking up onto his dashboard. That just goes to show how crazy it can be when the handful of cars go over the gravel trap. So much gravel is sprung back across the circuit. Things just about beginning to settle down, but it's still crazy, and as I spoke too soon, there's 2 more cars off in the background. That's Mark and Jason, I believe. Yep, they've been power drived off the circuit through turn 7. Let's hope it settles down for our sake, Dara.
Yeah, if nothing else, just let us catch a breath, really. I mean, it is a frantic start to this race as we now work our way through the final turn. Joe Sparrow just behind Thomas Pugh as Ben Smith sets his fastest lap and the fastest lap of the race. That's a 34.9, a full second quicker than Robin Noel Brown. Noel Brown's going to be getting lassoed in and almost a tow rope attached to the 1-2 I should say, by the 1-1-2 as the gravel, it goes absolutely everywhere. It feels more like a beach at the moment than it does a racing circuit, but when you get through turn 2 it quiets down a little bit. Your windscreen is going to be taking less of a battering, if not for the grass being kicked up now in front of Niels Keuler. That's the Joe Sparrow just in front of us, and again more gravel. It's just a circuit with such fine margins between the circuit and the gravel. You shouldn't be too surprised to see all of this debris on the circuit, but there is so much on the racing lines now. Whoa, what a move!
Yeah, great line out of there by Nils, who's got himself ahead of Joe Sparrow. He's now going to set his eyes on Robin Noel Brown, who leads the pack at the moment. Actually, the GT4 AM driver ahead of Ben Smith. I'm not entirely sure what happened toward the front of the field. It was a bit of a frantic start with a few mistakes being made, but it is Robin Noel Brown who does lead the way ahead of Ben Smith. Yannis Allbear's done well to recover, to get back up. He's riding up in P2 at the moment in the GT4 Pro class, 3 seconds ahead of Adam Atherton, who's got Thomas Pugh for company. We've got some guys in the wall. I was going to say going side by side. That's Charles Wimbley in the wall. I believe he made contact potentially with Charlie Stothard. I don't want to pass blame, but I think Charlie was next to him when he went into the wall. Jeff Hibbert and Matt Stace going side by side as they all come through turn 1 now. A good procession of cars from Liam Fraser, Edward Grove, Stephen Donnelly, Daniel Poole, all those cars in the background. There's Luke Bailey and his teammate Jacob Bonner. I think at the moment, Dart, there's another car off. That's Dean Sheesby, is it again? Maybe it's just his livery. I'm not entirely sure who that is. I think it is Dean Sheesby, already under blue flags. It's gone from bad to worse for the Porsche driver. And yeah, I'm really struggling to catch a breath here because the timing tower is going crazy. We've got 2 GT4 Porsches going side by side. Daniel concedes the position to Jacob, who leads them up and over the crest for what is the 3rd time already. 5 minutes, 6 minutes gone in this race. It's been an absolutely crazy start.
Yeah, and with about, you know, half of London Suburbans, front garden gravel bits for your cars out on the circuit as well. I mean, it is absolute chaos on the circuit at the moment. We're not even 6.5 minutes done in this second race. 30 minutes, of course, on the clock. We've only taken a few off. Still 23 minutes to go. Matt Stace is one of the drivers who's under pressure. Liam Fraser right on his tail. That Mercedes car, the 174, pulling out to try and make a move. In fact, that is actually a move further up. I was getting a bit distracted. The Mercedes, of course, of Matt Stace, of Liam Fraser, just behind Matt Stace, working through the final couple of corners. There's Stephen Donnelly as well. Jeff Hibbert is just in front. I think that was who I thought I did see. They'll make their way across the line to start yet another lap with one of the TCRs getting out of the way ever so slightly, but they're going to be clambering into turn 1 inside line. I think that is for one of the DXT cars. Is that Jacob Bonner making a move? It could be. And Jacob Jenner as well in there, 3 wide into turn 2. This is just getting so chaotic and crowded through the opening sector.
Yeah, really messy. I mean, it's the first time that these guys have had to deal with this kind of frantic start with different multi-class cars sort of spread across the area, particularly for the guys who struggled in the GT4 toward the start. These guys would have been okay. If we take a look at this, there's no TCR cars all the way down until around P2320 exactly, actually. So these guys are okay. Luke Bailey, he's dropped down a position. That's Daniel Poole who's made that move up, and now they're going to go through and round this fast left-hander, should I say, into the braking zone for the second chicane. He is up the inside. He is going to get it slowed down. Room left by both drivers nicely. Look at that, almost synchronized as they turned through that chicane, and now they're still side by side. This move will continue on, but no, he's backed out. Maybe a slowdown for the Porsche in behind. Daniel's lost out that position to Jeremy Orlemans, who steps up, and there is that the lead TCR of Logan McKenzie? No, it's not. It's a blue flag TCR that was just in behind those GT4s there. It's very, very difficult at the moment, at least until we get used to this, to pick out exactly which of these category cars are where on the circuit. Let's go back to the classes. Let's have a look. Logan McKenzie doing well to hold on. He's 4 seconds ahead of his nearest rival. Could be a double win on the cards for the American. Hussein Sarakadesh. Let's ride on with these two guys, as this is Gordon right up behind Hussein as we head through the final corner.
Yeah, and Gordon Hales is looking to try and make his way through and make it 2 wins from 2 for the evening. Would be a great way to kickstart his season in the number 17 car. Of course, Sarah Kadesla wouldn't mind picking up the win here if it was to finish as it is. They will both go to round 2 with 95 points in the back pocket, with the next closest not a million miles away, but still a good 10-15 points down. So would be a nice little start to their championship seasons, and would be maybe the sort of a battle between those two throughout the rest of the 10 rounds that we have. Edward Grobe and Matt Stace is this fighting out. Indeed it is, as they run their way in towards turn 7. Grobe trying to defend. In fact, I actually think that's one of the DXT cars, isn't it? Or is it? Difficult, as you mentioned, difficult with the new liveries. We got so used to all the liveries last season, and everyone getting a new paint job on makes it a little bit more difficult to spot. But that definitely is Edward Grobe defending. I think it's one of the pro drivers he's defending from, which is why there's a bit of a bigger gap to Matt Stace behind. And Stace has got his own problems with some more pros, but this is how it is. It is Jacob Bonner, KXR. It's a new name for us, isn't it, Joe?
New name, new team name, new livery. As you say, lots to pick up on. It's Matt Stace in behind them at the moment, so he's down there in P6 in the GT4 AM class, so out of position at the moment are these drivers. Edward up 10 places from the start. Luke Bailey up 4, Josh Ostick up 4 as well. Those are the cars just appearing in the picture there, the McLaren and the Porsche. That's Ostick and Jeremy Allemans. Ben Smith still leading the way at the front, ahead of Yannis Zolder, 1.5 seconds clear, and then nearly 6 seconds clear of Adam Atherton. Something tells me those two might go ahead and finish this race in one or two of those orders. That's a bit dicey there in the background between the McLaren and the Porsche, both of them running off into the gravel trap. I'm really going to have to do something, as that's one of the KXR machines up the inside. Gets past Matt Stace, or defends against Matt Stace. I think he got ahead of him, and that's upset his run, because Josh Ostick is already thinking about putting pressure on. And is that gravel, or is that a mistake? I think that's just gravel, but one hell of a big cloud of smoke picked up there. Very difficult to tell the difference, and I hope I can do something graphically to try and tone this down for next week, because it's absolutely ballistic.
The Dakar, isn't it, really? We're in that kind of siege. No, I think the Dakar's next week. But it's like the Dakar rally at the moment on the circuit, with the amount of dust that's being kicked up by these cars. Dean Sargent looking to go to the inside. Oh, getting nowhere from P7 against one of the pro drivers. I think that's one of the DXT Green... the Flatline Racing Green cars, yep. Just in front of him. So they will defend the position, but Sargent will continue on. A bit of a ways behind Robin Smith in P6. Is Robin Smith... I'm going to double check. Oh no, there's a car backwards on the circuit. I'll double check that in a second. Now that was a bit of a code brown for whoever that is, facing the wrong way. But I was going to ask, is Robin Smith Rob Smith, or are they different people?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer to, actually. I will try and find that one out. I would think that it'll be driving for the same team, you'd think that it would be the same, but I would have always had Rob as a Robert, not a Robin. But I guess you can abbreviate Robin to Rob if you would like. So yeah, let's assume that it is, given that he's driving for Flatline. But yeah, not an answer that I really have a good... Sorry, not a question that I have a straight answer to, I'm afraid.
It's alright, it's new season, isn't it?
We can be forgiven.
Hopefully we'll be forgiven for it, yeah. But yeah, it's nice to see a couple of these drivers firing it out. I was going to say, but Rob Smith, a little bit of a ways ahead of Dean Sargent, who's got a little bit of work to do from P7 in class. Difficult opening race for it was for Sargent, finishing down in P10. A few more points wouldn't go amiss, especially considering that finishing last at the moment in a 12 car category would still pick you up 13 points, I should say. So it's not too bad for finishing last. You just have to get to the end and you'll pick up a nice payday of points. Of course, when we get later on into the season, we start to figure in drop rounds for all of these drivers. It's going to make it a little bit more confusing, but it just means that attending each race is going to be so critical. Otherwise, every single point is going to count. But every point you do get is going to be quite a nice payday.
Absolutely right. Here's the two Mercedes. This is Liam Fraser. He's closely followed by Stephen Donnelly. In fact, there's 4 Mercedes in a row. Not sure we saw that at all last season, given the amount of Mercedes that we had on the circuit. But it's Jeff Nibbard ahead of Liam Fraser, Stephen Donnelly, and then Edouard Grobe. And so it's good to see these absolute tanks making their way around the first couple of corners. Let's see how they get on the exit. Just misses the apex narrowly there, does Edouard. But he's got Stephen Donnelly, who's might put some pressure on Liam Fraser. That's exactly what you like. The two drivers ahead of you battling away. It gives you an ample amount of time to get ahead and try and close that gap. It's what you want to see. You can drive your normal race, let the two guys ahead of you battle away, and before you know it, you're right on the back of them. Let's see if you can close that gap over the next few laps. Things just about starting to settle down across all of the classes. We can have a quick summary of where people are at the moment. Thinking the likes of William Humphrey, who we saw go off at the start of the race. He's down there in P31 overall, so nothing that Will's going to be able to recoup at the moment, although the points might still be on offer. I'm not sure where he is in class. I don't have that information with me, but he's not going to be too far off. I'm sure he will still score points, just nothing like the points that he scored in the opening round. The 3 Mercedes, there's another car getting involved. There's 2 Porsches coming through. Edward losing out on a couple of places there. That's Charlie Stothard and Jacob Bonner thinking about it and getting the move done, not wasting any time at all there.
No, making sure that he's got the move done, and indeed he has. In towards turn 1 though, it gets a little bit tight in behind. Is that 3 teammates coming towards turn 2? It is, yeah. The 3 KXR drivers all working as one pack at the moment, as we see Charlie Stothard, Luke Bailey, and Grobe just in behind at the moment, but I don't think Grobe's part of Trent. Where is he? I think, yeah, it may just be the timing page. It doesn't quite look like 2/10, but it still could be the 193 back there. At the same time, they'll go through the Sahara there with all the the gravel being kicked up, with Stothard still behind Niels Kula. Oh, was that a bit of a send? I think it was from Luke Bailey on the teammate as well. That was bold.
That's going to allow his other teammate there. Look at this. Charlie leads, and the Luke and Jacob barely split by anything and split by nothing in that instance. They've made contact side by side. Bit of a stumble on the gearbox there by Charlie himself. Let's just drop back and see how Jacob gets on, as he's now been chased down by Luke. Both of them making contact there as they headed through the second chicane. And thinking about a move there goes the Mercedes up the inside of one. Not going to think about the second. Coming off the racing line there, and the Mercedes got himself through. This is going to be another frantic pack here as the Snake through turns 8 and 9 down toward now the final corner. This will be turn 10. I don't really want to cut away with this because that Mercedes is really fancying his chances. That's Edward Grobe, who really wants to get away from these guys at the moment. He's got some... Is that a GT4? Yes, it is. All of these guys GT4s at the moment. No TCRs mixing it in with them, but nothing separating these 5 cars who are all dicing from left to right to try and pick the right spot. Heading into turn 1, they've all kept it clean apart from one of them. That's Jeremy Olemans, who's around at the exit of turn 1, allowing the rest of these cars to continue on.
Yeah, and it will be Jeremy Olemans having a couple of struggles, not necessarily in the start of the season that he was looking for, but he'll have time to recover and bounce back of that, I am sure. Jacob Bonner, we'll cut away from him fighting to see what Steve Rubino is doing in that red and yellow machine through the final corner in his battle to get towards the front on the TCR ends with Jason Haddington. Haddington wouldn't mind a podium in his number 43 car. Rubino is standing between himself and his chances at that top 3, but these guys aren't far behind Gordon Hales and Hussein Sarkadessa at all as they fight just up in front. So really close little gaggle of cars at the front of the TCRMs. Top 4 covered by all of 2 seconds, I think that is.
Yeah, really, really tight. And I'm just trying to pick out. Hussein has got John Ludbrook in the mixer. I think John's got quite a bit of damage on the front of his car. Maybe just a few bumps and scrapes. But it is Hussein Sarakadeza, the number 8 Honda that we can see on the left-hand side there. John Ludbrook's got himself through. And then the next 3 cars are all battling for the race lead and the final place on the podium in the TCR AM class there. So John's going to get himself away in the superior category. He should be able to get himself away very cleanly. Even though he's got a bit of damage, he'll still have the straight line speed over the rest of these drivers. And at the moment then, it's a Honda, a Hyundai and 2 more Hondas who are chasing down Sarika Desla for the race lead. Danny Weir has just got himself past Robin Smith in the chicane. Gets that move done for DXT Tetley. DXT Motorsport of the Tetley variety, let's say. But Rob Smith not going down without a fight though. He's really got the momentum now on Danny. He might fancy his chances. Flatline Racing Blue versus DXT, and he is going to fancy his chance on the stopper. Gets it slowed down lovely on the apex. Danny Weir not going to get the traction out of the corner. He might even be in danger of losing another position here. This is Flatline Racing Green, another flatline car of Max Nevenchani. Is he going to think about it into the final chicane? I think not, and he does not. And these drivers are going to stay very close together in what is the last 11 minutes here. But more importantly, I think that pack has now just broken away slightly, Dara, sadly. We've got Hussein and Gordon very close to one another. In fact, almost as close as you can be to one another. But Steve Rubino, Jason there coming in the picture now. They've just dropped off the back ever so slightly.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if they can recover towards the back of the group, but they've got a little bit of time to do so. 2/3 of the race have gone. Still leaves us just over 10 minutes to decide who is going to have the second race wins of the season in each of our classes. Noel Brown, a quick word on him is that he looks like he's pretty set on getting another win in that GT4 AM category. 21 seconds is his advantage in not even 21 minutes, so incredible to see him pull away from the rest. Of course, his P3 in race 1 would combine with a P1 here to join him on points, 90 points in fact with Niels Kula, if things were to stay as they are. So really impressive P3 overall as well, as you can see in the tower, really showing how good of a job he has done in this race. So full credit to Noel Brown on the Camry GP2 car, and those bright blue, lovely looking wheel rims, very easy to spot, looking resplendent on that car.
Yeah, very good effort for a guy out of class to be fighting so high up the field. 4 seconds off the back of Mr. Allbear. It's not a bad run at all. We know the kind of pace that Yanis has got. His best lap time, Yanis Allbear, 1:34.9. The likes of Noel Brown only 4/10 worse off, actually, so he's got a lot of pace in that Porsche. But the top 4 cars at the front of the grid, all Porsche, so they're definitely dominating once again. We've got Adam Atherton in the Mercedes doing very well, but you can see, in fact, the top 13 GT4 drivers are either a Mercedes or a Porsche. So the McLaren of Josh Ostick doing well, but maybe that's not the car to be in. And as we saw, that lone BMW, absolutely not the car to be in. I think the drivers can make a change this season. I know for sure they can do it in GT3. I would assume it's the same case in GT4. A driver can switch manufacturer if they choose, but that will cost them 50 championship points, which will be taken from their overall score. So it's not something that you want to do flippantly. We might see a few guys making those changes toward the end of the season. Perhaps when they have a few 100 points of a buffer, they can maybe get away with a little class change. But at the moment, the Porsche definitely the car to be in, followed by the Mercedes.
Yeah, you don't really want to be throwing away too much of an advantage early on. Oh no, and that's Zienga going around the number 77, actually getting it righted pretty quickly, so that's not too much of an issue. But oh, nearly going back off the road again. There's an Audi working its way through, not too sure who that is at the moment. Could be Anthony Hilton. Only a few Audis in the field, and they're all a little bit further down the order. This is Keith Calhoun, the American driver in the 99 car. Maybe sticking a nose up the inside, really sending it up the inside of the 21. Can he get this one? Can he get this move done? I should say maybe. It's Mark Parkhurst, who is a lap down, of course, so not for position overall. And Parkhurst may just let that one go, being a full tour of the Zolder circuit behind the driver he's currently battling with, although there is some hefty damage on the front end of that car. Daniel Poole for the Flatline Racing Green team, working his way down in towards this turn 5-6 combination, and will stay where he is. Being harassed a little bit though, for the time being. Not for positioning class though. Brandon Smith 9 seconds behind, but I think Paul will feel a little bit comfortable for the time being, and I think he'll be alright. Feel happy with the points that he's going to be picking up today. Of course, new to the series, wouldn't mind picking up a decent points tally in the opening rounds.
Yeah, it's all coming to a head now. 7 minutes to go here. Smith still leads Allbear ahead of Thomas Pugh, who's going to just about get himself up on the podium. He's taken the position away from Adam Atherton. Robin Noel Brown, 22.5 seconds ahead of Liam Fraser. That's win pretty much secured for Mr. Noel Brown, ahead of Nils Kuller, who's doing very well on his debut. Win and a P3 as things stand. Who's that coming in behind there? That's William Humphrey, who's making his way through the field, currently in P12 overall in the GT4 Pro class. So not where Will wants to be, having crossed the line first in the opening race, but still a decent amount of points to bring up. And then we've got Logan McKenzie, who's doing very well at the moment, but he's just 10, maybe 11 seconds ahead of Jaden Scotton. And then we'll cut actually now to see how these guys are getting on. Hussein Sarakadesl leads the way in the TCR AM class, and that's Gordon Hales coming out around the final corner, just 1 second behind us. Anything could happen here. Neither of them can afford a mistake. There's only going to be a handful of laps remaining before we reach the checkered flag.
Yeah, so it really is crunch time for a lot of these guys. They can't afford to be dropping too far back. They can't afford to be making any kind of mistake that costs them too many positions, because they've got, and well, most of them have got a position pretty much in their back pocket with the gaps that they have behind. They can't really afford to let that go away now. I mean, the likes of Yanis Allbear could try and fight for the lead with Ben Smith, but he can't really afford to risk too much. He's got an 11-second buffer to Thomas Pugh, you know. You don't really want to be throwing away that kind of good advantage by making some mistake in the closing minutes. We'll see what Yanis can do in his ambition for a win. But for Ben Smith, good start to the season for him with William Humphrey's incident on the opening lap. It means that he's right down the order, and Ben Smith is in prime position to take the lead in the championship. Thomas Pugh and Yanis Allbear will be following in tow as well, and will mean that there's a little bit of work to do for William Humphrey, of course. We may see him end up dropping this round if he starts to become really consistent throughout the rest of the season, but for the time being, it all counts. It's all on the tally, and William Humphrey's going to have a little bit of work to do.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And speaking of work to do, here's Stephen Donnelly, who's got a little bit of stuff to do. We've got a great run out of the second and third corners, and now he's right up behind his fellow Mercedes driver, Liam Fraser. Just about gets it up and over the curve, and now they're going to come bounding over the crest down toward the second of the two chicanes and toward turn 5. Sorry, now turn 7, the big complex of 3 or 4 corners. All, look at that, the front left of the Porsche there, lifting off the circle. Let's ride on board with Donnelly as he comes to close out this race. Stephen's very experienced with the SI, he knows exactly what's going on. Liam Fraser's only done a handful of races in pre-season. He's also part of the GT3s, and that's late by Donnelly. Well driven there by Fraser, actually, to open up just a small gap. Allow Donnelly to come through. Oh, a little bit of rear bashing there, but they've managed to keep it in a straight line. A lot of drivers there would have just continued right steering, and then they would have ended up spinning round, and he's made a late move up into turn 10. Great racing by the pair of them. Feisty by Stephen, who maybe missed his braking point a little bit, but he got it stuck in the apex, and the room was left by Liam up the inside. Of course, these two battling out of class. Liam really should be conscious because he's got a P2 to think about, but he's got Niels right up behind him, so he really has to be conscious, and he's got himself ahead of Donnelly, crucially putting a car in between him and his class rival.
Donnelly doing a good job at the moment to try and keep himself up in a competitive position in the order. Cooler trying to get his way past Liam Fraser, quite doing it for the time being. They'll come back to the part of the road, part of the circuit where gravel feels like it's endlessly bouncing up and down, will become pebbles by the end of the race. But for Niels Cooler, he wouldn't mind to back up his P1 in race number 1 with a P2 in race number 2. A P3 would still be alright. Spin in the background. Is that Luke Bailey going around? I don't think it is. Is it Jeff Hibbard? Could very well be Jeff Hibbard in the 175 going around, and that could throw away a decent finishing position for him. Branday up from the back of the field. Obviously after starting behind all of those TCR drivers up into P8 now, having a very good recovery race, it seems.
Yeah, and here, all of a sudden, Yanis is mounting a challenge on the race lead here. Ben Smith separated with, is that Hussein Sarakadesla potentially, the number 8 machine? Yes, it is. He gets out the way nicely, allows Yanis through. We could see a change for the lead of the field here. The GT4 Pro drivers now only half a second between the two of them. Let's ride on board with Yanis Aubert. 2.5 minutes to go. Only going to have a handful of laps remaining. And he's missed the apex slightly, has Ben ahead. That might give Yanis a good run up toward the chicane, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that Yanis wants. Right in the mirrors of his opponent. He knows that he can do some damage on the brakes, offline slightly. That's going to hinder his exit potentially. Gets it stopped nicely though. Gets up and over the crest. And any predictions here, Dara? I think this could be quite feisty with only a handful of laps to go.
Yeah, I think Ben Smith may just about have enough to hold on here, but Yanis Aubert he's no pushover, is he? At all. We know exactly what he can do, how wily he can be. His racing now is right up there with some of the best here tonight, so you wouldn't put it past him. But he's only going to have, is he going to have one more lap after this one? I think we could be going on to the final lap now. It's going to be close, but I do think this is going to be us going on to the final lap, with the fact that Ben Smith's still got about another 15 seconds to get to the line.
Yeah, and it's just sort of put a little bit of a margin in between him and Yanis. It might not be enough for him to convert at the moment. Ben's led well and truly for the entire feature race, so he wouldn't want to give it up now. Across the line, do we see the white flag? I'm not quite sure if we missed it. Let's see what happens when we do one more circuit. William Humphrey just appearing there. Yeah, it is good. William Humphrey appearing there inside the top 10. He's made some late points up toward the end. Last time we saw him, he was in 12th, so he's gained a handful of additional points there. We've got Liam Fraser, who's close in behind Joe Sparrow. That's a battle out of class, though. Liam 24 seconds behind Robin Noel Brown, who's absolutely smashing it toward the top of the field. And then the only other battle that we've got on track is between these two drivers. So saying Sarakades's got a bit of a stricken, I don't even know what that is. Is that a Hyundai? I can't tell what that is. He's going to have to get out the way nicely, otherwise Gordon will be right on the back of him. Gordon Hill sniffing victory, potentially, in what could be the last lap there. You can see the dirt on the windscreen that's been kicked up from all the grass and all the gravel that's been sprayed up. No wonder these guys have had to use their wipers, even though it's dry conditions, defending the inside line. Who is that? Is that Keith? I think that is Keith. It's Keith that we saw earlier, who came off the worst, actually, at the end of the turn 8 and 9, when they came together in the braking zone. It was actually not Keith who was involved, and yet he was the one who lost the position. That's Huss rejoining. I believe that is Huss rejoining the circuit. He's taken out the two class leaders, and Huss, so nearly didn't hold his brakes there. And he's going to have to keep it steady. Let's see how he gets out of this pickle, because that's not the best one to be in. Huss left the circuit, came back on, and he's taken out the race leader. And now Steve Rubino has inherited the race lead. Is this going to be right at the end? Yes, it is. Ben Smith wins ahead of Yannis Aubert by only half a second. And it'll be Robin Noel Brown who wins in the GT4 AM class. Let's see what happens down here between the guys that we've just left. Steve Rubino, he's going to win unexpectedly. Came through the field, gained 6 places. He's won the race for Flat Cap Racing, and it's going to be Logan McKenzie who's making his way around the circuit now, not under blue flag, so he has to go for one more rotation around the circuit.
He does, but it'll be a bit of a lap and a one. Same as we had in race 1, actually. Logan McKenzie was the only driver in the TCR Pro. Of course, got a couple more drivers with him this time, but he was the only driver to finish on the lead lap. Everybody else got lapped by our eventual race winner, William Humphrey. So Logan McKenzie, 2 from 2 and not being lapped. Scott and Goulet, though, joining him on this little bit of a parade lap this time round. They'll also pick up a podium. But also good results in that class from Alaka Yenga, especially after we saw his spin down at turn 8, a few laps to go. So good results up and down the field, and I think there'll be some happy drivers, and I think there'll also be a few drivers who are going to be either ruining some opportunities or not particularly pleased about how their first evening's gone.
Absolutely right, and here he is crossing the line. Logan McKenzie does what he needed to do ahead of Jaden Scott, and he rounds the final corner for Flatline Racing Green. And that's Jay Corley, who's got a nice little livery on the go. We haven't really seen that one very much tonight, should I say, this session. But he finishes on the podium once again in the TCR Pro category. What a frantic night's racing that was. I feel like we've barely had any chance to even talk, well, not much strategy, but talk tactics and talk, the actual lap. We've just been going from incident to incident and from battle to battle there, really, for the last hour.
Yeah, a really crazy opening round to the season. Really sets us up nicely for a good championship running into the next few rounds, especially considering that we're going to Road America next week. A little bit wider, a little bit more room for us to have our battles, and less lapping ongoing. There's no doubt about that. Much longer lap Road America. So I don't think we've got any doubt about that. 3 20-minute races there, though. Going to be really frantic, but a lot of points up for grabs. Really excited to see how the drivers can approach that, but with a few drivers in championship league position who haven't been here before, it's going to be some uncharted territory for some.
It absolutely will be. And so then, let's take a look at the finishing order and the race results ahead of the final race tonight. So starting off with the GT4 Pro class, it's Ben Smith who led the way the entire race and did a very good job to hold off Yannis Aubert by just 0.5 seconds there. Very close finish between the pair of those. Thomas Pugh joins the pair of them on the podium for Axis Sim Sports Red, but he was nearly 17 seconds off the back of the pack. Adam Atherton in P4 ahead of Joe Sparrow. Another great result for Joe, P8 and a P5 overall tonight for the JSD Racing pair, because he finished ahead of his teammate Stephen Donnelly. The 130 machine doing very well, and what was his best result so far this season. Jacob Bonner, Francois Brandet with a good recovery drive from the back of the grid up to P8 in class, and where was that overall? P13 on the track overall. So great night's racing for Francois, who recovers some good points for the GlassTech DXT team. He finished ahead of Jeremy Orlemans and William Humphrey, who also recovered after an early spin out of the exit of the second corner. He rounds off the top 10 ahead of Jacob Jenner, Jeff Hibbert and Josh Ostick. However, Charles Wimbley and Marius Himber will not score points, having finished 16 and 19 laps down respectively.
It does mean, though, that Ben Smith will have that championship lead in the GT4 Pros, as I believe will not be Robin Noel Brown, I should say, but he'll be in a tie with Niels Cooler, as those two swapped positions from race 1. It was Noel Brown in race 2 that got the win, though, by 24 seconds ahead of Liam Fraser. It wasn't quite that same gap for Fraser ahead of Niels Cooler, but was able to get himself on the podium nice and safely. Luke Bailey was in P4, a good result for him. after his P8 in race number 1, with Edward Grobe finishing in the top 5. Charlie Stottard was in the top 6 for the first time this season, after finishing 7th in the opening race, with Matt Stace down in P7 and Klaas Vellen down in P8. Still top 10 for him, along with Daniel Poole, who finished inside the top 10 for the second time after finishing P6 earlier, when Brandon Smith finishing inside the top 10 for the first time this season. Sadly for Ludbrook, for Kitley, for Sheesby, for Muntian, they were all a long way down, and I don't think they'll be picking up their points, so they will go down, I believe. Joe, there's a DNF in this race.
More than likely. So that's the GT4s rounded off, and now let's take a look at our TCRs. First, with the Pro Class. Logan McKenzie does exactly what he needs to do all night long. He's had an absolutely stellar debut, and that is maximum points for the American driver for Team Shelter tonight. He finished 15 seconds ahead of Jaden Scotton for Flatline Racing Green, and Jake Corley, also for Team Shelter, getting himself on the podium. Alok Nyenga, the privateer, finished 1 lap down, but nonetheless scored very strongly in the TCR Pro category, ahead of Keith Calhoun for Ignium Motorsports, with Scott Malcolm in P6. Max Nevenchani rounding off in P7 ahead of Anthony Hilton, the top 8, with James Howarth and Kevin Marshley finishing in the top 10, all of which scoring points, and then sadly Sergio Ferreira once again failing to finish, ending up 19 laps down. Don't think he scored a point all night.
No, he didn't. Disappointing for him. Actually, it's worth noting that the top 5 in that race were the same as they were in race 1. Complete copy of what we saw. Little interesting bit there. But in the AM category for the TCRs, it was Steve Rubino who won this one. It's been a pretty close evening in the TCR AM category. Not much to split the top 2. 1.2 seconds it was in the end, between, of course, Steve Rubino and Gordon Hales, who makes it a win in the P2 in the opening round of this season. Jason Haddington just about edged out Robin Smith for P3, as they finish only about half a second apart from each other. Hussein Zarakadesra, after his late spin, finished in 5th, with Danny Weir not too far behind in 6th. It was Fellows and Sargent 7th and 8th, Ashley Brooks and Martin Kenyon 9th and 10th. Parkhurst was a lap down, and Randalls was 3 laps down. I don't know whether Randalls will pick up his points, but even if he doesn't, it's not been exactly the best start to the season for the number 45 driver.
Absolutely not. Well, what a frantic night's racing that was. We've conducted all of our standings, and now we can head over and try and speak to a handful of drivers. We've got quite a few of them waiting for us. We're going to pick out a few of the guys who've had some good results tonight. Notably Logan McKenzie, he's in there, so he'll be a good one to speak to almost right off the bat. So let me do the necessary, and then we can get ourselves underway and speak to a few of these drivers. Just bear with me a moment, Dara.
All good. Nice to be able to speak to a couple of our drivers after the races, especially if they've had a good evening. Always nice to hear a happy driver. Drivers aren't always the happiest creatures, are they? They can be pretty humble. They can also be pretty mundane with their responses. But I think we'll have a few happy faces tonight, Joe.
I would hope so, mate. I would hope so. Well, I'm good to go if you are, mate. So let's crack on.
Let's bring in Logan. Logan. Let's hope you. Logan, how are you, Logan? Can you hear us?
I sure can.
Good stuff, mate. Well, first of all, welcome into the interview booth and welcome to ESR. I mean, first of all, just talk us through your first race. Debut with us tonight, maximum points. Seemed like you were having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, fun was certainly a word for the first couple laps of both races, especially race 1. It was I was constantly thinking, oh, that car's going to bounce off the barrier and hit me, or that car's going to... So it was... I was happy to survive the first couple laps, and then from there it was just about getting into a rhythm.
Yeah, how did you find the multi-class sort of setup? Have you done much of that, perhaps in officials before or other leagues? Because I think we were seeing a few drivers who've been with us a while, and obviously some new faces were maybe struggling with that. There was quite a few incidents, maybe, you know, the faster cars coming through, tricky corners to deal with that. Did you manage that okay, or did you have a few shaky incidents with any of the GT4s?
I think any potential incidents I might have had were avoided because people did a pretty good job of flashing me to let me know they were going to dive me. There were a couple times where I thought, "Well, that GT4 is sending it from way back," but since he flashed me, I'm gonna I'll let it go because they asked nicely, basically. But no, it's I have a bit of experience with it between Publix and other series, so it's interesting. The starts having the classes slightly mixed. Everyone's just trying to find space to get going and get into a rhythm at some point.
Absolutely.
But I mean, looking at some of your races, well, you really dominated in the TCRs. I mean, how nice did that feel that you kind of were able to pull away from everybody else?
It makes the multi-class racing a lot easier when you don't have to worry about, oh, this guy's gonna cost me a second in this turn if I don't, keep him back there until then or something like that. There's a lot less. You can just exercise a lot more patience, and it's a luxury that I'm happy to have on tracks where the track's a bit opens up a bit more. I won't have to be as careful. I think Road America's next or something like that, so it'll be a lot less tight than this.
Yes.
Won't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah, is that a circuit you're looking forward to next week? Of course, you've performed really well this week. Is that one you're looking forward to try and extend your championship margin out?
Yeah, for sure. I recently ran a different endurance race in the TCR at Road America, so that was a series with GT3s and 4s and LMP3s. So there will be less traffic here, and I'm thankful for that. No, I'm looking forward to it. Road America's it races really well.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
forward.
yeah, mate. I was just curious with the championship that you're obviously now with us. Is this the expectation? Did you fancy your chances at being toward the front of the grid, or is tonight maybe a bit of a surprise?
I am not going to act like I'm not disappointed when I don't perform well. That was definitely the expectation going in, and I think I have to have that expectation for myself going into every race now, or I'm not going to perform at the top of my game.
That's the best way to look at it. Already 9 weeks to go, so it'll fly over the championship season. And you're right, next week, Road America, we've got 5 circuits across the US, Long Beach and Coda and Sebring. So plenty of circuits to get your teeth into. I'm sure you're familiar with all of those. So before we let you go, mate, we always give the guys an opportunity to give anybody a shout out if you'd like to, your teammates or anyone watching at home if you'd like to do that.
Well, first race, I'll go ahead and shout out Anthony Hilton and Jay Cawley over at Team Shelter. Those are my teammates for the season. And Jay threw together the liveries and in general is a great ambassador for the TCR class on iRacing. So, I'm happy to have them as my teammates and looking forward to the rest of the season.
Very good, Logan, mate. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll speak to you again. Feel free to drop in whenever you like post-race, and we'll have a chat as the season goes on.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the broadcast.
Good stuff, man. Thank you.
Great to speak to Logan McKenzie there. Great to have him after his the win. There are some new sounds on Discord, I think there is, Joe, with the people and VCs. It's really it's really off-putting to me at the moment. I'm going to have to get used to it. We will next we'll bring in Robin L. Brown next. Robin L. Brown, who picked up a P3 and a P1 in the GT4 AM. Catherine, Robin, can you hear us?
Hey, Derry, I can hear you.
Good stuff, Robin. Well, first of all, welcome to the booth. I don't think we've spoke ever, if not for a while. And so, talk us through, particularly that second race, if you don't mind, because, I mean, you were the class of the field there, finishing on the podium on track, and, of course, leading your class all the way home with one hefty margin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty chuffed to have got an overall podium. It's my first overall podium with ESR, so it's pretty exciting for me. And yeah, I don't know what happened at the start. The other line just didn't seem to go, so that gave us a big advantage in the left-hand line from the beginning. And then managed to get past the guy in front of me in the first sort of 3 corners, and just went on from there, really. Just trying to not make any mistakes, keep it on the track, and get to the end.
How did you find with the TCRs getting through that field? Was that okay? Any sketchy moments, or did you just pick your points and get it done?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty tricky. They're not that slow out of the corners, so and there's not very many long straights here, so you end up in the braking zone with them quite a lot, especially if the TCR driver doesn't lift at all on the straight. So yeah, there were a few hairy moments, particularly in the first race. In the second race, because I had such a big gap, I just tried to hang around until there was a really easy place to pass them, because I didn't want to take any risks, like I said. Until the final lap, where 3 of them all crashed in front of me and tried pretty hard to take me out right at the end. So that was a pretty hairy moment.
But, I mean, even so, really good result for you tonight. I was talking in the broadcast actually about how good your back end of last season was coming into this season. Did that kind of give you any kind of confidence boost? Because you really did perform, got a couple of wins, loads of podiums. Did that give you that kind of boost of confidence to come into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed racing the GT4s, and last season I didn't really have a lot of time to be able to commit to doing both the GT4s on the Monday and the GT3s on the Thursdays, so I sort of tended to pick the GT3s over the GT4s. But yeah, when I found some more time towards the back end of last season, it was spending some more time in the GT4s and seeing that I was competitive in them has definitely given me a confidence boost going into this season, for sure.
Good stuff. And looking forward to next week, of course. You're really in a championship battle, no doubt about that. Tied on points with Niels Kula, and a good chunk ahead of the likes of Luke Bailey, Matt Stace. Liam Fraser's up there with you as well, but you're really in a championship battle. 3 20-minute races. Does your approach change to that, or are you still going to be looking to get as many points early as you can?
I think try and get some points early, set my stall out at the beginning. Obviously, it's still really early days in the championship, and anything could happen, so I'm not counting my chickens that I happen to be tied for first place at the moment. One bad race or, getting taken out by someone or off tracks in qualifying could make a big difference. So, yes, I'm just going to see how it goes in the first race, see where I end up. Obviously, if I end up in sort of the mid pack, see if I can get myself in a good spot for a good grid position. I think I haven't read the rules, but I think at least one of them will have a reverse grid. So if I end up in the mid pack, try and get myself in a good spot for the reverse grid and try and get some points in one of the later races if I don't do well in the first.
That sounds like a great plan to me, Robin. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, good luck. I'm looking forward to the next 9 weeks of racing. And before we let you go, mate, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the usual, James and Rob and all the guys at ESR who make this league possible, and also to you guys who, giving up your evenings a couple of times a week to commentate on us, poor amateurs. Just trying to enjoy our sim racing. So thanks very much, guys, and thanks to all the team.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. It always throws up some excitement, so we're more than happy to be here. And yeah, it was very exciting. Well, depending on how you look at it, very exciting from a viewer's perspective, but perhaps not from the guys in the cockpit in some of those scenarios. But yes, very good. Always welcome back. I'm sure we'll be speaking to you again as the points flow in for you this season. So good luck and congratulations.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
Speak soon. Bye-bye, mate.
Great to talk to Robin after a great result for him. We will... Who are we going to bring in next? We'll bring in Francois Brandet next, who, of course, had a difficult race one. Francois, welcome in. Sorry if I've taken you mid-sentence. That happens more than it should. Okay, I'm sure you can hear us, can you? I'll pass over to Joe.
Have we lost Joe again?
No, I'm here. I just really can't hear you very well. Let me turn everything up here. I'm with you, but I didn't hear you there, Francois. Go again.
How are you guys?
I need to turn you up. You are extremely quiet. But all good, mate. All good. And I'm glad that you recovered in the end. Your first race wasn't the best, obviously scoring nothing. But then you managed to have a mega drive all the way from the back of the field right up into P8, I believe it was, in the end. So you've scored a nice handful of points, and that must have been quite the drive to pass through the best part of, 40-odd cars maybe by the time you got to the checkered flag?
39 exactly, because I went from 52nd to 13th overall, race 2, which was mostly TCR cars or dying GT4s, so not really a lot of proper battles, but I'm still happy I managed to score a 8th position finish in class, which in pro is probably not going to happen a lot.
Yeah, and talk us through that that race 1 incident, I think we caught you at the tail end of another incident where you ended up at the right-hand side on the exit of turn 2, 3, yeah, down towards the first chicane. Were you caught up in something that wasn't your involvement, or were you side by side there and you got sent off the circuit?
No, both incidents I was involved in. Race 1, I was unfortunately a sad bystander, if I can say so. Race 1, turn 1, somebody tried to send it on the inside, pushed the car. He was diving to me, which made Steven spin, and I got pushed off wide, so I already lost quite a bunch of positions there. And then going, I think after turn 3, 4, the straight leading to the first chicane, like 2 cars collided with each other. One bounced off the tire wall and landed on my car, so race ruined from that onward.
Yeah, but you still recovered well. Oh, sorry,
No,
carry on.
it's good.
No, I was just gonna be, you still recovered well. I mean, how difficult was it to pick your way through the traffic? I mean, you had the TCRs and the GT4s. Zolder's a very tight, twisted circuit. How difficult was it? Are you kind of hopeful now, looking towards Road America next week, that it could be a little bit easier?
Was not as hard as I thought it would be, because I think when the faster car is patient and you don't go for silly dive bombs, everything just gets cleared easily. I was too far to catch up the very fast TCR cars, so obviously I had a big advantage in pace to the other TCR cars. So just a bit of patience, knowing when to go for a move and knowing not to. Just very smooth sailing, I would say. I was just taking it as a bit of practicing for the multi-class exercise that we don't usually get in ESR. And yeah, it was very nice. You flash a bit when you want to go for a move, you go for it when it's safe to do so, and voila.
How is top class racing? Obviously, you're in Evo for the GT4s last season. You're in the pros now. How does that feel?
I'm honored, really. I'm very proud for the promotion. Obviously, after I won the Evo season last season, the Evo class, sorry. So I'm very proud to be up there. Now it's up to me to actually step up to the plate and show that I still have some pace in me. Obviously, I'm like eons away from the very fast guys in the lead, or in the class rather, but yeah, I'll do my best to get some decent finishes. I potentially hoping for a few top 5, but that's really the most I can hope for.
Absolutely, Francois. Well, good stuff. Obviously, few incidents for the other members of the team tonight, but all in all, you've had some good experience between the 3 of you, and I'm sure you'll all be fighting right up there at the front in the next couple of weeks. So before we let you go, mate, as always, if there's anyone you'd like to give a shout out to.
Yeah, quick shout out to my DXT TEE teammates, and of course Will and Yanis in the Glasstech and DXT new squad. Good finishes for Yanis. Unfortunate second race for Will, but a good win on the first one. So we move forward, and we learn.
Absolutely right, mate. That's the right approach. Well, good stuff. Good to speak to you as always, and I'm sure we'll catch you in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, shout out to you also, guys, for the stream. It was a bit complicated, but you did your best, and as always, it's very enjoyable. So have a good evening, and see you in a bit.
Thank you, man. Cheers. Speak soon.
Hey, always nice to speak to Francois. After a race from him, we'll bring in now Andrew Fellows into the broadcast booth. Andrew, who is a regular in the races. So, Andrew, welcome. Can you hear us, Andrew?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Andrew, mate. Good to hear you again, and welcome back, of course, for this new season. So, a regular with us, always good to have a chat, and just talk us through that, mate, because you're back in your beloved TCR machinery, not like the GT4s. I'm sure we remember you saying last year that you're much more familiar with this machinery. So how did it feel back in the car, and also how was it with the other GT4s on the track?
Yeah, it was good, to be fair. I mean, the GT4s I did enjoy. But yeah, the TCR, it does seem a little bit more familiar. For me, it's more the front wheel drive, being able to save a slide a little bit easier. But yeah, it was with the GT4s, it was interesting. When I first went out in practice with them, you couldn't get a clean lap because every lap there's a GT4. But in the races, it wasn't too bad. It was a bit like when you race the likes of the officials like IMSA and stuff, where you've got the LMP2s effectively coming through and stuff like that. Not quite that speed difference, but the same sort of thing where you got to try and get the other classes through. But it was good, to be honest. Race 1 was good. I had a really good battle with Ash and Hussein for several laps. And I actually led for a few laps. Just ended up getting slowed down as some GT4s come past. But so that one was all right. Race 2 didn't go quite to plan. There's been quite a lot on the Discord. You guys will probably catch up later. But there was an incident on the formation lap. And I unfortunately got caught up in that. A car that was ghosted went straight through me and just caused wheel damage out of nothing. So I was in the pits. So I recovered to 7th, so not too bad.
Yeah, but good recovery and good points on the board for you anyway, Andrew. Looking forward to next week, of course. Road America, very different prospect to what we've had here. You're still in that kind of championship battle. You're still in the top 4, kind of where you were at the back in the last season. You're going to try and hope to shoot yourself into contention next week?
Yeah, Road America, I did quite well there, I think, last season, or at least I was quite quick there. I won there in officials last season. And I think I had a few issues in the league, but it's a track I've driven. Track I think I can get some pace out of. It's a little easier than it is at Zolder with that nightmare chicane in the middle. Here was quite difficult to be consistent, but there it's a little bit easier. So it'd be interesting. There's obviously some new guys in the series, and Gordon is really quick. You got Jason's quick. There's quite a few new guys, and it's just interesting to see how they get on as well.
Good stuff, Andrew, mate. Well, it's good to speak to you. We were joking earlier, actually, about the sheer number of flatline racing drivers that we have. So I'm going to ask if you'd like to give anybody a shout out, but feel free not to shout each one of them individually, because that might take a little bit too long.
Yeah, that might take a while. We've managed to get 4 teams. But yeah, just shout out to Flatline in general. They've all come on board. They're all really good. A couple of drivers weren't here tonight, but should be here next week. Lewis and Dennis. But we've got Marius in the GT4 Pro. He's rapid, so it should be interesting seeing him up there with the likes of Will and Yanis throughout the season. But yeah, big shout out to you guys, the admins, and everyone else that make this series possible. Thank you.
Good stuff, Andrew. Well, welcome back and good luck for the rest of the season. And as we know, we'll speak to you next time, I'm sure. So enjoy your practice, and we'll see you this time next week around Road America.
Nice one. Cheers, guys.
Good stuff, man, Andrew. Enjoy your week. See you, mate.
And you. Bye-bye.
Great to speak to Andrew Fellows, as always, on Monday night. And that will be our penultimate interview. We've just got one more to talk to. That's Scott Malcolm to welcome into the booth. Welcome in, Scott. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Very good, mate. Well, first of all, thank you for waiting. Quite a few guys to get through. We kind of run down the order the best we can, so appreciate you hanging on for us. And, well, welcome. Welcome to ESR. Welcome to the booth. I guess I can ask, just talk us through that second race there. You got a nice result, finishing inside the top 6 in the TCR Pros. And give us a little bit of background on your experience. Are you a TCR kind of proper driver, or is this just a little, dabbling in something new?
It's solely a drive in the service. I've always been TCR and started off with a Kia when there was no TCRs. I've done God knows how many online leagues, and it's been a couple of years since I've actually done a broadcasted league. So I was quite surprised when I seen this one. I thought I'll give it a try, and then it's been alright. Had a wee bit of drama at the start of race 2 on the parade lap. Had to go to the pits, take the fast repair, and then just came out and just slowly started picking off cars, make my way up. That's the way you've got to do it.
Good evening. I think it's fair to say for you, Scott. Again, keeping yourself up involved, the top 6 in the second race is a good result considering the top 5 in the race were exactly the 5 in race 1 and race 2. So definitely nothing to shy away from. I mean, next week to Road America, hopefully you'll be here for that one as well. 3 20-minute races, 150 points up for grabs. Is that a track you know much about? Is it one you're looking forward to?
That's a really good track, the TCRs. Like the Zolder and Dorrington, Brands Hats, these kind of tracks are really good for it, and Road America's one of the good ones for it.
Yeah, totally right, mate. Actually, and I'll just have a quick word about the team. Is it Ignium? Am I pronouncing that right? Ignium Blaze.
Yeah.
And
yes,
the other sister
yes.
team as well. So you've brought a lot of those guys in, and is that people that you've raced with before, or have you kind of brought this together just for this season?
No, we've raced together before. I know quite a few of the guys personally, and we've met up at Knockhill at the touring cars and had a few drinks, and thought we'd give this league a bash and see how we get on.
Good stuff, mate. Well, it started pretty well. I'm sure you can improve. Obviously, we'll be looking back at that race 2 start. As you said, it was a bit of an issue, but yeah, all in all, some good points scored. Not a bad debut, and as you come to know the drivers and obviously the car a bit better, then you'll definitely be right up there, I'm sure. So I always like to give the guys an opportunity to give anybody a shout out if you'd like to, your teammates or whatever. So if you'd like to do that, you can do that now.
Just say hi to all the Ignum drivers and everybody else that was watching the stream. I guess there was quite a few watching this, and all the rest of the drivers in the series, and I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Good stuff, mate. Well, thanks for joining us, and you're absolutely right. We'll speak to you, I'm sure, up in the future. So thanks for joining us, Scott, and good luck next week.
Cheers. No bother. Cheers.
Good stuff, man. See you soon.
Yeah, and Scott Malcolm, great to be able to speak to him in his debut race in the series. And Joe, I think that pretty much wraps us up for our interview tonight.
Absolutely, mate. Good stuff. Well, let's go ahead and do the usual formalities, and we can move away from here, and we can close out. So, that's round 1, all said and done. As we've said several times already in the last half an hour, we move on to Road America next week for our triple header format, the 3 20-minute sprint races, which will be even more frantic, I'm sure, than what it has been tonight, if that's even possible. However, some formalities to look at before we finish. If you'd like to join Evolution Sim Racing, you can do so by scanning the QR code on screen now or by searching us online. Obviously, the link is also in the description of this broadcast. We have full grids on Thursdays and on Mondays. 120 drivers signed up on Thursday, 60 drivers on a Monday, but we do have waiting lists. We have social sessions, we have practice sessions, so anybody can get involved and get on track with us to some extent. So if you're interested, feel free to scan that QR code. As we said, it's going to be me and Dara on Mondays and Thursdays here on Evolution Sim Racing, and Split B on Thursdays. Split A will be shared by Chaz Draycott over on Chaz Draycott Media, so it'll be interesting to see how we got in on what will be round 2 of that championship this coming Thursday, only a few days from now. So thanks to everyone who's been watching on throughout the interviews. Still a handful of people left in the session. I appreciate everyone who hangs around right until the end. And until then, until Thursday, that's been all we've got for you guys tonight. And it'll be very, very interesting, especially for Dara, to make his return to Evolution Sim Racing GT3s. Dara, I'll give you a chance if you want to say anything ahead of that one before we close out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a little bit of a while. I think it's been about 13 months or so. But looking forward to getting back on the GT3s, especially considering that we're going to be at Zolder again, and it's going to be one of those tracks, GT3s as well, where it's going to be quite fast. It's not going to necessarily be easy to go side by side. And yeah, really looking forward to it. And can't wait to do it with you, Joe.
Good stuff, mate. Absolutely. I had a lot of fun around Donington. The cars are very exciting to commentate over, so I'm sure it'll be even better when you're joining me in the booth. So we'll wrap up there. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you all in a couple of days' time in the GT3 B-Split around Zolder once again. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.